Friends, I'm Dr. Malathi Lakshmikumaran, and I will be conducting today's webinar on behalf of 4 global organizations. We in India are passing through a very tough phase with the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is like a tsunami. It's not a small wave, it's a tsunami. And therefore, we mourn the people who have passed away in the last 1 year, more so in the last 1 month. They could be our near ones, dear ones, relatives, friends, people in the fraternity. And as a mark of respect for the departed soul, we will start with a 1-minute silence. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We will start this event, and I'm conducting this event in the capacity as Secretary of the AIPPI-India Group. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh, panelists, participants to the webinar entitled Celebrating the World IP Week 2021, a Meeting of Minds. I'm happy to note that in spite of this huge wave, second wave of COVID-19 that we are facing, several people have joined to hear the special address by the Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh and the other esteemed panelists. I will quickly do a round of introduction of the moderators of the event and what this whole initiative is about. This is the first ever initiative where 4 different global organizations, associations have come together to conduct this webinar to celebrate the World IP Week. This showcases our unity in diversity and solidarity during these tough times. The 4 organizations are AIPPI, the India Group, APAA-India Group, FICPI, the India Group, and INTA. This webinar is being held in association with Lex Witness, which is India's first magazine on legal and corporate affairs, which is the official webinar secretariat for this initiative. We now welcome the president of APA, Mr. Sudeep Chatterjee. The first session will be conducted by President of FICPI, Mrs. Archana Shanker. The second session will be by President of AIPPI, Mr. Hemang Singh. And between the first and the second sessions, we will have a special address by the Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh. Lastly, but not the least, we have Gauri Kumar, who represents INTA, who will do the vote of thanks. Just a few minutes about each association. Hemang Singh is the president of AIPPI. It is all our 4 are IP associations. AIPPI is world's leading non-profit association dedicated to the development and improvement of laws for the protection of intellectual property. It is politically neutral, non-profit organization based in Switzerland with around 9,000 members worldwide from 125 countries. And their objective is to improve and promote the protection of intellectual property, both in the international and national level. The next, we have Mr. Sudeep Chatterjee, who is the president of APA, which is Asian Patent Attorneys Association. It's again a non-government organization dedicated to promoting and enhancing intellectual property protection in the Asian region, including Australia and New Zealand. Established in December 1969, membership of APPA is open to individuals practicing the profession of patent attorney in the Asian region, as well as organizations which comprise such individuals and are constituted in the Asian region. It has more than 2,500 members from 21 recognized groups. Again, APPA has a large pool of expertise and several members who play an important role and an influential role in promoting and enhancing intellectual property protection in the Asian region. Next, I welcome Mrs. Archana Shanker, who is president of FICPI. FICPI is the only international NGO whose membership consists entirely of IP attorneys in private practice. As a result, the FICPI community is driven by a shared interest among like-minded people to promote common solutions and advocacy for private IP practitioners. Again, FICPI is for private practitioners. It was founded more than 100 years ago. The community has more than 5,000 members, and the membership is drawn from more than 80 countries and regions across 6 continents. Next, I welcome Gauri Kumar, who is representing INTA. The International Trademark Association is a global association of brand owners, professionals dedicated to supporting trademarks and related intellectual property to foster consumer trust, economic growth, and innovation. INTA's membership comprises nearly 6,500 organizations from 185 countries. Through this membership base, INTA represents more than 34,000 IP professionals. I welcome all of you all, but before we start the webinar today, and I hand over the mic to Sudeep Chatterjee, there are a few basic housekeeping rules. Questions shall be taken up at the end of respective panel discussions. Questions, if any, may be posted in the QA box or the chat box. If you people look, you will know where the chat box is. There's a QA box, there's a chat box, and it's just next to the participants icon. In order to ask a live question, please use your raise hand icon, which is also there in the end. Lex Witness, which is being represented by Akshay Alag, he will coordinate these question and answer sessions. I next call upon Mr. Sudeep Chatterjee, President of APA, to welcome the participants, panelists, and do the introduction and set the context for today's webinar. Thank you, Sudeep Chatterjee.
Thank you, Martina. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this debut initiative that all the 4 organizations have tried to put in together. I personally cannot recall that any such initiative has been done in the past, and I really hope that in the future, such kind of initiatives are taken forward by all the 4 organizations. And in fact, I would like to also have a number of other IP organizations who can be a part of such kind of initiatives. And it is very encouraging to see that we have got support from veteran speakers from various realms and domains. And it is indeed a fortune for us to listen to all of them together. I would like to, however, reiterate and emphasize upon the very seed of this initiative that has been the theme behind the World IP Day, IP and SME taking your ideas to the market. We are all aware about how important the SMEs and MSMEs play in bringing a perfect balance between invention, business, and innovation. However, what they lack is how they want to protect and their innovations and inventions that they create. And it is important for us to understand the role of the SME that play in bringing up the economy. According to WIPO Director General, the SMEs are the unsung heroes of the global economy and are an engine for the growth in the post-pandemic world. They account for more than 90% of all companies worldwide and are providing employment to 70% of the people worldwide. And yet many of them feel that there's a lack of knowledge on how they can use the IP to translate their ideas into products, and how IP can be used as a powerful tool for them, not just to survive, but also to compete and grow. According to the Indian Brand Equity Foundation, India has approximately 6.3 crore MSMEs, and the number has grown year by year. For example, last year, there were in the year 2020, there were around 2.5 million units, which is a growth of 18.5% from the previous year, wherein it was only 21.21 lakh units. The Indian MSME contributes around 29% towards the GDP through its national and international trades. And considering their criticality and contribution SMEs play in the nation's development, the industry needs to know how IP can further boost their growth and value. Similarly, when it comes to the startup ecosystem, overall funding activity was positive in the first 3 months of 2021, with startups raising close to $3.76 billion through fundings. And in the first quarter of 21, the Indian startup ecosystem has saw an increase of over 17%. So we can all understand how important the SME and MSME sectors are there for the Indian economy. And I personally feel that a lot of these people lack on how to protect their IPs. And that is where I would say that the IP professionals play a very vital role in this. So therefore, I would like to now proceed forth with the knowledge sharing sessions that we have for the day. Our moderators and speakers are here to share their views to all. And I wish all of us a fascinating webinar way ahead. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sudeep, that you spoke about. I would now like to start the first session and hand over the mic to Mrs. Archana Shanker, President FICPI. She'll moderate the first session. Archana.
Thank you, Malathi, and thank you, Sudeep. A very warm welcome to all of you, and I welcome you all to the discussion on the theme of the World IP Week, which is IP and SME. Sudeep has set the background very well for this session. So without much ado, I'll kind of straight away jump to our PAPAC panelists who belong to different diverse fields of the industry, including the government. We all know that SME has been a very important, SMEs play an important role in the growth of our economy. But what we still see is the lack of awareness about IP and how IP can serve as a very important tool to drive your business objectives and goals. I have the panelists are from the government and the industry because we have a very short session, and I would really want my panelists to kind of share their experiences. Dr. Premnath, our first panelist, he's the chief scientist from CSIR-NCL. He's been charged with the responsibility of championing the cause of technology innovation with NCL. He also provides leadership for the intellectual property group at NCL, one of the leading IP management groups based out of research institutes. Dr. Premnath has the fortune of working with startups in Cambridge and India, and we would really like to hear his thoughts on, comparing how startups value IP in India versus his experience in the UK. He's also founder of the Venture Center, a technology business incubator at the NCL campus. He's a scientist, Polymer Science and Engineering Division at the NCL with an interest in technology development for biomedical products. I'll also introduce my next panelist, Mr. Manish Tandon, who's the co-founder and chief financial officer of Curadev, which is I'm not sure if I should call that any longer a startup company, but when it started in 2010, maybe you could kind of consider it as a startup company. The focus of this company has always been a research on small molecules for different therapeutic applications. And there's a huge success story behind Curadev. And certainly I would want Manish to share his experience. In turn, Manish holds a master's in biochemistry from MS University, Vadodara, and an MBA in finance. Dr. Hemang Shah, he's the India engineering lead at Qualcomm Technology Licensing India. He leads the intellectual property and engineering, innovation, product, and business strategy at Qualcomm India. He has hands-on experience in various aspects of technology product development, including systems, engineering, device fabrication, characterization, and product. In his role, Hemang has worked and mentored at least 65 startups, of which at least 1/3 have now become commercially viable. Hemang, we would love to hear your experiences and the learnings that you have to share with the audience. Zameer Nathani, our last panelist, is a general counsel at the UFO Movies India. Zameer is a general counsel with a master's in law and PhD from Harvard Business School, an executive MBA from NMIMS, US IP law from Stanford University, intellectual property rights and ADR certifications from WIPO. Zameer wears many hats, and some of them are, I know this is not an exhaustive list, Zameer, but just to name a few. He's a voluntary board member, Cogent Biotech LLC affiliate of Cogent Life Sciences, that's working on a second API in India with US funding for COVID vaccines. He's a voluntary board member at the Crimson Investment Fund LLC, which is a Harvard alumni company, which funds startups in new and disruptive technologies, innovations and business models. Zameer is also a mentor at the Atal Incubation Center, NMIMS, established under the support of the NIPI Aayog. We do have a time constraint, so without talking much about this session, I think we all already know what the session's about. I just have one small question, and maybe we can discuss on that issue the whole day. But the question is that to my panelists, and I would certainly want you to share your experiences, that how do you view IP, and how has IP helped in leverage the company's business goals? And do you think, as an organization, as a startup or SME, IP is critical for the growth of an SME to take it to the next level? Do share your learnings and experiences with the audience. Thank you. Can I first start with Dr. Premnath, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible? Okay, great. Thanks for the introduction, and please alert me when I'm running out of time. I can go on forever sometimes. So anyway, first of all, a little bit of background on where I'm coming from. I'm part of the National Chemical Laboratory. And as part of that, we do look at IP and technology for the research institution. But we also look at spin-offs and transfers to SMEs on one side. I'm also founder of the Venture Center, which is a business incubator which works with a lot of inventive enterprises. It is India's leading inventive enterprises incubator based out of Pune. It's home to more than 65, 70 odd resident startups at any time, and we worked with about 500 odd startups. And I'm also a biomed products developer myself, and a founder of a couple of startups. So in that context, I can speak on behalf of startups as well in some capacity. So today, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about perspectives of, give you a perspective of IP and how startups in India are today perceiving it. First of all, when I talk about startups, I'm talking about a specific class of SMEs where the focus is on the future. These are future opportunities that these companies are exploring. And by virtue of it being in the future, there is an element of innovation involved. That innovation could be technical invention led or a business process innovation. Invariably, there is technology at the back end in whichever form, either as an enabler or as the heart of what the company is doing. And in all of these cases, because they're looking at future opportunities and there are risks involved in the process, and there are opportunities to be captured in ahead of others, there is an element of significant risk, and therefore IP plays a very important part. It is quite important that these companies protect these ideas, they reduce the risks, they sustain the edge, competitive edge that they build over a period of time, and use the edge that they have created to raise resources to furthering their innovation and taking it ahead. So these are clearly central to all startups, and that is something which we must always recognize. When we talk to startups, there are many dimensions where it becomes where IP comes into play. To begin, the very first thing is even simple things like whether they have freedom to operate or not, whether they would be able to operate freely in the presence of a landscape of other patents in the domain. Are they able to keep their doors open long enough to pursue their line of research and technology development before somebody else closes it for them? And have they created that window of time and opportunity for themselves? Is there clarity of rights, ownership, and so on and so forth? Very often, one simple thing that is ignored by many startups is that while you have a lot of ideas resident in somebody's head is sometimes quite risky from an investor's perspective. It needs to be translated or converted into a little more formal intellectual property, which can then belong to the company, and the ownership rights are very clear. And also, what if the particular inventor is not available anymore? Company can still pursue and take it ahead. The other aspect here is also a very important aspect of startups, which is that they have to go and talk to a lot of people to gain well-wishers, to gain mentors, to gain funders, to and you know, most CEOs and founders of startups will tell you how much of their time goes in just selling that idea and the possibility that it represents. And that means if they have to speak freely, there's a need for IP as well. Yes, of course, competitive edge and maintaining a competitive edge and providing that as a comfort for investors is also another important aspect. This is what varies between different industries. In some industries, people value first mover advantages and you know, integration and other such advantages more. Maybe in computer science, for example. But in many other domains like pharma and so on and so forth, there's no other way other than looking at formal IP. You can only do so much with scale and speed and all of that. And of course, in when it comes to sometimes putting in a lot of money very quickly, the big players are more dominant, and the SMEs cannot utilize that as an edge that they can build for themselves. IP also creates that opportunity for presenting the inventive capacity of the company, to show that it's an inventive company, that it understands how to accrue value through IP, and you know, it understands that these things can be transacted and that they're creating transactable property which can be taken ahead. So we often see a lot of cases of patents, designs, trademarks, plant varieties being filed by some of our startups. And in our case, especially Venture Center, we have a lot of companies in therapeutics and preventives, medical devices and diagnostics, agriculture, energy and environment, and a lot of patents in the chemicals, materials, biological sciences, and engineering sciences come out of those kind of startups. So just to give you a couple of quick examples, for example, a startup in our in the Venture Center focuses on a disease called vitiligo, which is an autoimmune disease, and they have a new pathway defined and drug candidates identified for vitiligo, and there is a very active program to build candidates which can be taken to the market as topical you know, applications. And that is a company which, interestingly, in the Indian context, where a lot of therapeutics companies are not there and are not receiving a lot of attention in terms of funding, has been able to get raise money and take their program ahead quite rapidly. There are companies which relate to, say, vaccines, for example, virus-like particles. There are companies which relate to devices and diagnostics, including India's first circulating tumor cell diagnostics company, which is called Actorius, which is out of Pune, and companies in the agro, biotech, and energy space, including renewable energy, for example. I just wanted to come to a few other quick points. One, of course, Archana spoke about, which was relating to Cambridge versus India. But one other couple of other points I wanted to raise, discuss. If you look at the kind of transactions that these startups deal with as far as IP is concerned, you will often find them starting to struggle with right in the beginning with confidentiality agreements and so on and so forth. even protection of IP, the general level of awareness might be fairly low unless there are very experienced founders who are driving it. There are also situations where they have to source or in-license IP, especially given the context that in India, still 70 to 80% of the R&D spending happens in publicly funded institutions. There are a lot of reasons why you may need to collaborate with publicly funded institutions and research institutions, and therefore you need to understand what kind of sourcing you need to do. And then, of course, there are development, co-development and technology partnerships that they need to do, branding, co-branding opportunities with marketing partners, and very often other dealings when company sale is happening. We haven't seen in practice as many out-licensings from SMEs and startups, but those are some things which we do notice. If you ask me what is the key difference, by the way, so I've seen the Cambridge in the US, Cambridge in the UK and India. So if I look at all of those, I would say that the first and foremost is clearly the issue of awareness and understanding the importance of IP. In fact, when we first opened the Venture Center, I had requested Professor Richard Friend, who was a Cavendish professor in Cambridge, to speak at Venture Center to a whole gathering of researchers, because he was a Cavendish professor, somebody idolized by the academic world, but also a key inventor of patents for OLEDs, organic light emitting diodes, and a founder of 3 companies. And it was interesting to point out that the world has changed, and that academics and researchers are building companies out of new science and technology, both in various parts of the world as well. And that is something that is the starting point. Beyond this, there is a lot of, we don't have much of an in-depth understanding of strategy in India. There aren't too many people who have done it before in deep tech kind of environments. Manish, who's going to speak later, is an exception, but there aren't too many people who understand how to leverage IP in the Indian context. And of course, the costs associated with it, the ability to travel, ability to look at a global portfolio with multiple patents is another limitation that often people have. So these are some points which I wanted to bring out. I'll close with one last point, which has got to do with what Malathi had mentioned, which was relating to COVID-19. It's actually quite interesting that these are fantastic times where technology is playing a very large role, and of course, in very desperate times, technology coming to rescue in record times. And startups have played a very large role, be it Moderna, be it BioNTech, be it Ridgeback, which is coming up with Molnupiravir, which we hope will be a successful drug, or companies like Noka Robotics from India, or MyLab, which is our incubator from Pune, which launched the first RT-PCR approved kit in India. And in all of these domains, they have played an important role. IP may have taken a little bit of a back seat in the urgency, but that said, it is very critical. And I'm sure that some of the platforms which people have built over many years on the back of IP will be useful for many other things, while in the short run, hopefully it will solve people's problems. So I think I'll stop with that. I think I've finished my time out there. So thank you very much. And I'm here for any questions that whenever it arises.
Thank you, Dr. Premnath. That was very interesting. At least I have some questions for you, which still kind of, boggle me down as to why has the startup industry not taken off compared to other countries. But without putting those questions as of now and leaving it towards the end, can I request Mr. Manish Tandon to share his views? We all know that Curadev started in 2010, and for those who don't know, Manish will talk about it. But they do have a success story to share with us, particularly when India has seen, not a research-based industry as opposed to just a generic industry. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for inviting us to this interesting session. We have talked a lot about this with Archana in the past, and for Curadev, which is into research and development segment of the pharma chain, we believe truly that innovation is the most important part to drive SMEs. Every country, we believe, have an economy to support, which has got three basic legs: manufacturing, then services, and innovation. India has done pretty well. I'm talking mostly about pharma sector, so please excuse me for other sectors if it does not apply there. But for pharma, I would say that these three sectors out of the services and the manufacturing has been doing very well for past few decades. If you look at the world pharma market today, 40% by volume of generic medicine is supplied by India. But unfortunately, it does not translate anything in value. That's very, very scary part. Now, if you invest into R&D, which is innovative driven and has an IP, it's got disparate income as compared to what the investment brings into. Small companies have to be nimble, agile, and they have to be less hierarchical. They can think out of box, and they are less egoistic companies. And that's why you'll find that of 80% of the drugs which have been approved worldwide over the last decade or so, 80% have come from small biotechs, like companies like Curadev. We just heard about the vaccines, which also came from the small biotechs. So that's been a good success story, and I think SMEs have a great role to play there. Also, I believe that India has an opportunity to be one of the innovative hubs of the world and bring all the R&D here because of the very convenient and very attractive tax regime. April 2001, 2017, April 1 is when the bill was passed in the finance bill saying that all the revenue that comes from intellectual property will be taxed at a concessional rate of 10%, as against 25 or 30, whatever was prevalent then. Believe me, this is a very attractive rate compared to anywhere in the world, except for UK and Switzerland and a couple of handful countries which have no tax. But this is a very good regime, I would say, and India should attract a lot of R&D centers because of this. SMEs have to grow up, they have to be innovative, and that's how they can be differentiated. Otherwise, if you go only on the cost basis, there would be hundreds of players that you can compete within India, let alone the world or China or Korea or whatever it is. But if it is innovation and IP driven, that's where the success can come to. So Curadev has been really successful in that respect. We have worked on a couple of programs. Fortunately, we have out licensed to big pharma like Roche in 2015. We did a deal with Takeda in 2019, and we did another out licensing with Bayer in 2020. So all top 10 pharma, we are fortunate. We have been working in immuno-oncology, which is related with mostly cancer, all kinds of cancer that is, and also program on inflammation, which helps in lung fibrosis or kidney fibrosis. So I strongly would advocate India to be the next innovative hub, and we have the skill set. If you see many places across the world, Indians are doing phenomenally well, even in R&D. It's not just that they do well in services or manufacturing. We just have to have a lot of risk-taking abilities, which is one differentiator between Cambridge, US, and India. So if we have risk-taking abilities and a matching funding to it, I think India can do wonders in IP. And we have extremely good people to support us, like Archana and Malathi all can guide towards that. I think filing is not very costly affair in India as compared to when I see it in UK or US, or even after PCTs when you go for country by country. India is one of the cheapest places. I don't know why people are hesitant. For academicians, there may be a problem that because they have to have a lot of publishing to be shown to the government, because that's how the next promotion is. But that also should change, I guess, slowly, as my predecessor was just mentioning, that a lot of companies being spun out of Cambridge or Stanford from the technology point of view, the professors coming out and making successful companies. So I think India is rightly poised. We should take this opportunity, grab with both hands and march forward and contribute well to the economy of India. Thank you. That's all I have to say from a limited pharma perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Tandon. Hemang, over to you. You have been, mentoring for many years now several startup companies that have kind of been very, very commercially viable and still continue to do that in a very, very niche area such as IoT, AI, agri-tech business. So your experiences, Hemang, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Archana, and thank you, Dr. Premnath and Manish, for sharing such wonderful insights. Like this truly, like I've been very busy writing down different observations from both of your worlds. And my world is slightly different than that, but I'm sure the observations will apply when I talk to our startups. So for everyone, I've been working with startups in India roughly since the year 2015. And the companies that I interact with, you would call them as IoT startups. So the applications that they touch, they range a variety of applications from drones to medtech, smart cities, batteries, EV batteries to agri-tech. So it's a diversity of devices that they touch. Now, all this came through our program. So I work for Qualcomm. Here I'm in a personal capacity, but I think the program that we lead, we make sure that we pick startups that are solving, problems which require mobile compute, and they are solving really tough problems. So this program is meant for companies who are innovating in India. So it's amazing to see the traction that we have, both not just from my program perspective, but also overall startups that I've seen across India. Now, these are also startups that I would call as hardware IoT startups. Now, we know that in the country, software has a great talent base. In hardware, I would argue the talent base was already there. We just were not used to seeing startups, built around that specific, niche area. And something has changed, right? Because firstly, we had to look at how are the startups going to be able to cross this bridge. They are taking a risk. And to me, let me define what the risk means. Every startup is born on the premise that they are unhappy with how a problem is being solved today. Or in general, they're unhappy with the products which are being offered. So to them, they're like, hey, some solutions exist, but they don't solve my problem completely. I can do it better. And to do it better, they're like, there's no one else who's doing it, so I will take that risk. It tends to be a 2-person, 3-person outfit at the beginning, and they go about attacking that problem. Now, in this hardware world, usually for prototyping, they would take on platforms, and these are, you can say, different computing boards that would work very well in terms of a prototype. But my loosely defined term would be that it's kind of like a final year college project. You can always see the enthusiasm which final year students have. They show you the sun, moon, and the world. But the minute you start thinking, will this scale to be a proper end consumer device, then you start having very legitimate questions. So we realized that one way to solving this problem is by giving startups platforms that are built to scale. At least the problems on which that they develop, and they go towards their first level of prototyping or pilot production should be the same. And after that, they can take on the additional cost which comes as they go towards improving their industrial designs. The other aspect which becomes very important when it comes to these companies are that naturally there are innovation opportunities which are going to be created. Now their IP awareness has a huge dynamic range. I've met founders who are IP savvy because they've had prior experience, but that tends to be maybe 20% of the folks. The other 80% of them, either they've received bad advice or they have their own assumptions. So you need to debunk a lot of those things. So we had to actually normalize them to a particular level of understanding of what IP awareness means. A lot of them would think that IP is a cash outflow. And they're technically right? Because you have to pay for a variety of fees, professional fees, filing fees, and whatnot. But then I had to kind of veer their attention towards that you're building an asset, and that asset can help you in multiple ways. It helps you prevent companies of different sizes from blatant infringement of your product. I think this particular group does not need any information on that, but it was worth repeating multiple times to them. What also changed is, let's say from 2015 onwards, I would need VCs that would ask about IP only as like a check mark. But today, a number of VCs are asking questions around the quality of IP that a startup is filing. And to them, what also indicates is that the startup, of course, is solving a very difficult problem, but they believe in the quality of their solution, and also that they're taking amazing steps to protect it. And they fully believe in the value of IP. So that valuation, whether you call it a hard, proper financial valuation, or you call it an intangible valuation, that here is something which is truly innovative, and that's going to pay us a lot of dividends in the future. So I think that also has changed, not as much as we'd like, but it's at least pointing in the right direction. The third thing which we had to also make them aware about is when it comes to getting resources. So India filing, as Manish pointed out, is not really expensive for the startups. But the companies that we are working with, so I have a medtech company that is solving a wound analysis problem. Now, everyone in the world suffers from wound issues, right? People get injured all the time. The market for them is not just India. So all these companies, they start by designing for India, solving for India, but then they ship to the world. And to the world for them, I had to educate them on what PCT is and how they should think about let's say, global filing that way. But also I had to bring them awareness around the various, government level incentives at the state level, at the national level, where they can get different kinds of reimbursement, for their not only India filings, but even global filings. Even with the SIPP scheme, a number of them are blissfully unaware about the different initiatives that the government is providing, such as facilitators or even the reduction in the patent filing fees. Like, we realize a number of startups were not filing their applications by selecting the startup category, so they were paying the full fees. And when you told them that it's not just the reduction in fees which you're getting, but also expedited examination, suddenly they're like, oh, we should have done that. So it's awareness on a lot of fronts which is happening. But the positive story which I'd like to at least end over here is that the companies that we have incubated collectively have filed for about 150 plus patents, and that counter is still ticking. More than majority of them are filed in India first, and then they enter the global patent filings. Now, also, even after they have graduated from our program, right? When they have nothing to do with us, what we are seeing is that they are building a portfolio of assets. So it's like it takes people like us to be a helping hand at the beginning. Once they know that, hey, this is something like an asset that we are creating, they imbibe it fully. So we played our role in the mentorship part, and then they're set hopefully for the rest of their lives. So with that, let me pause here, and over to you, Archana.
Thanks, Hemang. That was really encouraging to hear the kind of mentoringship that you've done, and how IP has been a very, very central role for these startups to kind of take off, including, you just mentioned a number of 130 patents. That's very, very encouraging. I would kind of now request Zameer to kind of, I don't see you there. Oh, you're right, you're there. Zameer, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Archana.
Different industry, which is the electronics, media, and broadcasting. So moving away from patents, maybe over your experience. Thanks.
I'll be completely new and disruptive like the IPs. So first of all, thank you, Archana, and it's a privilege that we are also blessed with the august presence of Justice Prathiba Singh, august presence of Justice Manmohan Singh, and Mr. G.R. Raghvendra Ji, who was Copyright and Patent Registrar and presently the Law Secretary when we were doing the copyright amendment for adding royalty for exploitation of the content. Going on, I would speak on different industries. So my agenda is two. Number one, at the global level, different industries and the present projects I'm working at. And number two, what are the specific recommendations which we have done a lot in India to attract FDI and investment, but how do we motivate investments for the startups and SMEs? Those are two recommendations which I'll specifically give, because that's an observation from the global world which I deal on weekly basis. Now, the projects itself, the first company where I'm working is UFO Movies. This company itself was a disruption in the market. Everybody in India thought that, the Kodak reel, which is now going to be put in your cinema theater, and then you can relay the movie on the screen. You had theaters across villages, and therefore it has to be a physical Kodak reel, which will be transported by a person on a motorbike from metropolitan cities to villages. And it would take about 3 months to release a movie in the whole of India. This company thought that instead of doing that, why not have a digital revolution at that point of time in 2007? And they replaced and started making digital projectors, where you have digital projectors in all the cinemas. You have a national technology center based in Mumbai, and you have a satellite which is based in Gurgaon, and you can relay one movie which is released on Friday on the same day and same time to each and every theaters of India. And that could be made possible. So that's the kind of startup intellectual we have got in India. Number two, the second project which I'm now looking at as a voluntary board member, because it's also part of the Harvard Innovation Ideas, is an API, active pharmaceutical ingredients, well-known base for COVID vaccines or other vaccines. People are generally not very well aware that if you use more amount of these medicines for making COVID vaccines, there can also be a shortage of diabetes and other medicines which you are consuming. This company already has one plant. They are today looking at US funding and SPAC, special purpose acquisition corporations, which are now gearing up in United States, giving funding left, right, and center. And this company is basically looking at those kinds of funding so that they can set up another plant in India, and they can have raw materials for these vaccines to be available in India and, of course, in the foreign markets, especially US and European Union. The third project which I dealt with is the Crimson Investment Fund. Every week, so this company basically originates from the Harvard alumni group, where the winners of the Harvard and Stanford competitions are basically listed in the business decks, and the company evaluates which is a better one to fund. These companies may have electric vehicle. One of the companies we saw, there's a lot of container theft which happens, the shipping containers. And you can keep tracker which are either solar paneled or either they are being electric. But these are all not workable in certain situation. And one is the company we saw, which was using kinetic energy, which means when the ship is moving, this particular camera will continuously be on. And it is such a tiny instrument that it is not very easily detectable in any part, but it has all the infrastructure for tracing it. The fourth one is, of course, the mentorship at Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies in collaboration with Atal Incubation Center, which is in the name of our former Prime Minister, former late Prime Minister, where we advise all the startups on strategy, leadership. Intellectual property rights is one of my forefront areas, where I ask them that this is your more competitive advantage than anything under the sun, where you are a pharmaceutical product, FDA clearances, etc. And the fifth one, of course, the Harvard Business School PLD, where I was a recipient of the Harvard Award for providing a transformation to a global telecom giant in their business model, which would help them get back to the market position. These are the projects which I'm specifically handling. What are the areas which I globally looked at are the two things. Number one, your valuation, which happens today in India. One of the examples which I'll give you, and then I'll give you the heading of this pointer. We were evaluating a company based in Pune last week as a startup. That company, because the COVID situation is not great, you don't have time to go for the insurance companies, etc. You go to an hospital contacts the insurance company, etc., and the formality takes place. This company is trying to replace the complete chain, which means if you leave from your house and you are moving towards an hospital, within that time, your insurance formality is by default done till the time you touch base to your hospital. They built up that particular software. It's already under execution. What we found when these guys were presenting to this US Harvard group, they offered a certain valuation, and the group was shocked because, in US we get companies, they will ask you $10 million, $50 million without having a single product in sight. And the kind of valuation which this person cited, it was so encouraging to these guys that, they said that this is very cheaply available. So is this because the funding is not available in your country and such good ideas have to come back to United States? This is where I saw an opportunity, because the government in the past has done a lot. But I feel that there are two areas where we need to have this kind of attention. Number one is IP valuation and monetization. This has been a subject in WIPO, United Nations, for the last 20 years. IP valuation and monetization, if we work towards that, because I feel every Indian startups are not getting their due credit, because of the dollar exchange rate valuation, etc. But in India, we need to push this model of IP valuation and IP monetization to get the real dues to the startups and the SMEs. This is one area where we can focus, we can help them, we can guide them on the valuation part and monetization. The number two area which I feel is that when we talk about IP valuation and monetization, we have a lot of companies which are approaching United States investment bankers, etc. I think we should have some guidance now looking forward on investment and SPACs. When I am talking about SPACs, which means special purpose acquisition corporations, they are called blank check companies in United States. They are spurring left, right, and center to all the innovation. If you are a pharmaceutical company, if you are a technology company, if you have some fundamental, be ready to get the blank check in your hand. The SPACs have become so well known in United States that even the owner of Louis Vuitton has dedicated much portion of his wealth from European Union to United States, because they want to now invest in these companies as a SPAC and then take it to NASDAQ for listing and have their 10x or 15x valuation. So I would feel that these are two aspects which we have to clearly keep in mind. Number one is the IP valuation or IP monetization aspects of the Indian startups or Indian SMEs, where we have to focus, bring it to a particular good level. And number two is the investment and the SPAC, which can be built up in India. We have CSR fund for CSR purposes. We have calls like Go Local. We should have a call like Fund Local and utilize some amount of money in that direction. These are my two recommendations, short and sweet for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zameer, and thank you, panelists, for just being in time. So we just have enough time for question answers. But if I really have to sum up this entire discussion, some learnings actually from our panelist is from Dr. Premnath, at least the 3 pointers that emerges: protect IP, reduce risk, and raise resources. And that's going to be very central to all startups. While I do have several questions for you, Dr. Premnath, I will first like to open the floor. But before that, Manish, manufacturing, servicing, and innovating. We've seen that innovation is something that's still lacking in India, at least in the life sciences sector. And maybe, my question again to you would be, at some point after, once we've had audience kind of place their questions, is that what would your learning to be, your guidance to young entrepreneurs who want to invest in life sciences? Because as compared to the industry that Hemang is mentoring, life science is a very heavy investment, driven area, as opposed to the IoTs, where the risks are, obviously the investment is less, but obviously the gains are huge, and the chances of failure are very, very high in life sciences. Hemang, numbers like 130, although they're very, very encouraging, as an IP practitioner, when I sit back and look, we've never seen a growth in IP filings in the country. So in terms of the percentage of a number of startups that focus on IP, do you think, are you satisfied with this number, or is just another number like we have the vaccination numbers in these COVID times? So if you look at the statistics that are annually published by the Patent Office, we don't see a large number of, whether they're entrepreneurs, individuals, or startups kind of taking that jump to kind of start filing patent applications. Is it because of cost factor? Is it because of our law? Or is it because some of the government policies, or maybe even funding? Zameer, just to kind of wrap up your, I have honestly just learned something very new from your discussion on blank check companies. I've never heard of them. So this is something very, very new. I have two questions for the panel, and I will just kind of, the first question is from Purnima, and that question is for Mr. Manish. Her question to you, Manish, is innovation and IP go hand in hand, but currently we are seeing low vaccine production due to lack of niche raw materials like adjuvants, etc. How can we overcome such bottlenecks? I would love to hear your thoughts on the same.
See, many companies are working on adjuvants. For example, even Curadev is working on one. Unfortunately, we have to go through the regulatory process because it's in the human trials. What vaccines and antibodies otherwise have advantages that they don't have to be shown too much into animal models about their efficacy or their toxicity. But for adjuvants, because they are chemical entities that we have made, it has to go through a rigorous regulatory approvals, which cannot be shortened even if there is a pandemic, because you're going to play with the life of human beings. So it's in pipeline, and probably it will roll out towards the next half of this year. You'll have many adjuvants across the globe, and I think that will boost up the production, as well as it will help in not vaccinating as many times as we would want to. So you just have to be a little patient. This actual cycle is about 8 years for getting a drug approved. But in the pandemic times, it's been just reduced to maybe less than 2 years. We are hopeful we should be able to do that by this year end. So be a little more patient, please.
I hope that answers your question, Dr. Purnima. I think the second question is for Zameer, although it's open for all the panelists, Zameer and Dr. Premnath. How different is valuation to monetization? And even maybe Hemang, if you want to take this question.
Yeah. So the valuation portion is that, you predict a certain amount of revenue which is going to come to you in next 2 to 3 years or 5 years. And those are the initial days of your valuation where you go before the investor. But on the monetization side, I'll give you one example of monetization. I love giving real-time examples. Now, we have all heard about Oculus, which is coming out. Oculus is a device by Facebook which you can wear it, and then you can also play games with that. I was evaluating one company. In fact, we have invested, like Moderna, etc. We have invested in those companies. That company is basically devising the same Oculus into an optician eye checker, which means today when you go to an optician shop, you have that big machine where you keep your eyes. The cost of this Oculus is 10 times less than the regular machine which has been produced. And that's where the monetization comes, that you are completely going to disrupt that market, which means this machine not only can detect your eye lenses, but it can also detect glaucoma in that, which is critical for an operation decision. So when you go towards monetization, you gradually realize that what you're seeing as a valuation at one point of time, now your monetization has become a big affair. So your monetization evaluation is your stage one. And when you go towards the monetization, and then if you go to different aspects of the field, that's where your IP valuation and monetization really plays into figure. But as an Indian company, we are still evaluating. Maybe we may be underestimating ourselves whether we'll be entitled to those valuations. And that's where the role of IP specialist, which comes into picture, who keep on evaluating patents, etc. Like we are evaluating still patents of electric vehicle on the USPTO to see and extend what kind of valuation and monetization you can claim if you come out with some alternative model which is in line with that. So valuation is your initial stage. And when you go towards monetization, there might be different sector or completely disruption, which you'll see in the market. And that's where you go on the high valuation. That's where the investor expects that when he will invest an X amount and he would land up with 10X or 15X. That's my answer.
I have a couple of questions here, but I'm not sure if I have time for all
Archana,
of them.
ma'am, sorry to interrupt. I have a live question request. If you please permit, we'll take a quick live question, ma'am.
Sure.
Ms. Harinder Kaur, please unmute yourself and ask your question live. Ms. Harinder Kaur. Ms. Harinder Kaur, please unmute yourself and ask your question live. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next question. Mr. Vishal Sudan, please unmute yourself and ask your question live. Mr. Vishal Sudan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening to all the panelists and the moderator. Yeah, so my question is related to the damages in patent matters. Like I have hardly seen cases where damages have been awarded by patent office or IPAB. Even High Court is very reluctant to award the damages. Maybe either it's infringement related cases or frivolous oppositions or in a revocation matter. So even there is provision in the Patent Act also. So what's the hurdle maybe if Justice Manmohan Singh and other panelists.
Vishal, we'll keep your question for the next session. Maybe you could place it for Justice Manmohan Singh. He's going to be in the next panel, and he will be happy to answer your question because it's
definitely I will be able to do that.
Yes. So maybe we have a couple of questions, but I will just take another. We have another 3 minutes. So the next question is to all the panelists, and we'll keep it very, very quick so that we can cover everybody's questions. Another 3 minutes. Are there any examples of startups that have made exit with IP as core asset and valuation done based on IP? This is from Mr. Parag Thakre. So Hemang, would you want to take that question?
So I don't have an example of a startup which has done an out-and-out exit, but I'm aware of what do you call the category is it's an e-bike company, EV bike company, which has created an out licensing program. So it's not an exit because they're continuing a development of their own product pipeline, and they are doing pretty well, in that domain. But what they also realize is that as they were developing, their e-bike manufacturing facilities and embedding different electronics, they saw an opportunity to create a licensing package. And so while they are thriving as a startup, also they are doing reasonably well as from a licensing perspective.
Thanks, Hemang.
But there, Archana, I would like to add here that there are tons of examples in the biotech when across globe. The single asset companies, or maybe a technology platform that they have developed to make antibodies, or maybe some drugs, they are outrightly purchased by big pharma. It happens all the time.
Yeah, in fact, exits are the more common method of
right,
value creation in all medical sciences and related health sector, including biomedical devices and diagnostics. So I think Hemang's point was from Indian context, but globally, that is the largest way of exiting for startups.
Yeah.
Okay, I was giving an Indian example.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Next questions from Ranjan Narula. In the current economic survey of India, there is a general advice to all private companies to move away from jugaad innovation. So what is required to bring about this paradigm shift for India to realize its full economic potential? So we'll just have to keep this very short. We've run out of time. So maybe I'll just, this would just be the last question. We do have 3 more questions, but I do apologize. And Akshay, if you could just kind of see how we could address those issues, those questions, maybe towards the end of the session.
Sure. Any answer to the question that Archana
should I take this, because we are monetized?
Please go ahead, Manish.
So
Please go ahead.
Let me help you with this. See, it depends on if you are looking at the area, that becomes too specific. That's why I don't know if I can answer you very well on it. To our context, we would say that it has always been, if you have something very different. Filing IPs, for example, I'm not here to point fingers, but if you have 150 IPs and if you cannot monetize it because it's not novel, it has to be novel, it has to be inventive, it has to be put to practice. It cannot be just a Me Too program that you have just innovated something. Kuch tha usko theek kar diya. That's what Jugaad innovation is. You have to completely be novel about it. Very disruptive, like the examples that Jamil gave, for example, the different things that the disruptive technology happen. If you can do that, monetization should not be a problem. I don't think that you will not attract money.
Thank you, Manish. I think with that, we've just kind of exceeded our time, but with that, I'd like to kind of close this session. I'm extremely grateful to our panelists for this, enlightening session that we've had. Ideally, we can have a full day session on this, and we've just not done justice for this 45 of a 50-minute session. But once again, thank you from the entire team from AIPPI, FICPI, INTA, and APA. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Archana, for conducting this very good session. Very good. I mean, I wish we had more time. Next time we'll do it more question answer session types. It also gives me a good thing that we should do more of these joint ones between different IP groups. It is my pleasure to now welcome Honorable Justice Ms. Prathiba Singh, and I will just give a short introduction, madam. And I would also ask all the participants and panelists to give a big hand and welcome Honorable Justice Ms. Prathiba Singh, Judge, Delhi High Court. Ma'am, we're very honored to have you with us to deliver the special address. Just few words about her. I know most people know, but it is my privilege to introduce her in this session. Honorable Justice Prathiba M. Singh completed her 5-year law course from the University College, Bangalore. She graduated as a first rank holder from Bangalore University and also represented India at the Philip C. Jessup Moot Court competition in Chicago, USA. She was offered the Odas Scholarship by the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust to study LLM at the University of Cambridge in UK. She enrolled with the bar in 1991. Before being elevated to the bench, she was a leading intellectual property lawyer in India. She had the distinction of handling landmark matters in all areas of IPR laws, including patents, trademark, designs, copyright, plant varieties, internet laws, etc. As a managing partner of the law firm Singh & Singh, she advised clients and handled cases relating to commercial disputes, arbitration, telecom, broadcasting laws, media laws, writs, regulatory issues, education, etc. She has regularly appeared before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, the High Court of Delhi, TDSAT, IPAB, trademark and patent offices. She was appointed as the amicus curiae by the High Court of Delhi to streamline the working of the Copyright Office. She was also appointed on a high-level committee for streamlining of patent examinations. She was invited as an expert to present views to the Parliamentary Committee considering amendments to the Patents Act in 2002, Copyright Amendments Act 2012, Geographical Indications Act, etc., etc. Mrs. Prathiba Singh was designated as a senior advocate by the Delhi High Court in December 2013. The Justice Prathiba Singh Scholarship for LLM students was instituted at the University of Cambridge in 2013. Scholarships are granted to Indian students who have secured admission at Cambridge for pursuing their LLM course. Recently, she has been invited by the Vice Chancellor, Cambridge University, to be a part of the Circle of Advisors for India. She was a member of the IPR think tank, which was entrusted with momentous task of drafting India's first national IPR policy, which was released in May 2015. She was also awarded as the 30 most powerful businesswomen in India, awarded by the Business Today group in September 2018. I'm sure she's got many more awards, and I will not be saying all of that. Her articles are several, including India, Look Behind the Headlines, India is a game changer in patent laws, implementation of the commercial codes, etc. And during her tenure as president of APAA-Indian Group, several important initiatives were taken including filing of a writ petition, seeking constitution of the IPAB, as also the creation of the Delhi courtroom complex for the IPAB. She's been a regular speaker at various national and international related workshops, seminars, and events. I now request the Honorable Ms. Justice Prathiba Singh to deliver her special address. We welcome you, ma'am.
Very good evening to all of you. This is Manmohan Singh, my senior colleague from the High Court. It's good to be with you on this panel, on this session, and see you all. Malathi, thank you for the kind introduction. It's indeed tough times that we are assembling here, but I must say it's nice to see all IP friends, community members, the larger IP community, including Mr. Raghavendra, whom I see from the Ministry of Justice, everybody here today, and to see that all of you are safe and sound. And I'm sure you've all gone through, or you are all going through some kind of crisis or the other with your families, with your near and dear ones. And therefore, this event, where all organizations of the IP community have come together, is a reflection of the solidarity that the IP community has towards itself and its responsibilities, and also to keep the wheels going, as they say. We should remember the World IP Day now than ever before, because according to me, at the bottom line of every right which is given to any citizen, any individual, any human being is humanity. And there cannot be a bigger time when IP needs to connect with humanity and human life as much as it needs to do today. And in this backdrop, in fact, I would be speaking about this right at the end when I finish my address on the topics which are allotted to me today. It is indeed a very, very poignant situation that all of us are in. I've been an active member of this IP community, and it is, I've moved on and become a member of a bigger judicial community now. But the sheer human tragedy that we are currently going through is actually not explicable in words. As a judge, you can see the difficulties which human beings and citizens of our country are facing on a daily basis. But yes, in that backdrop, we cannot forget that life must go on. And it is in that spirit that this event has been organized. And I congratulate INTA, APAA, AIPPI, FICPI, and all the other organizations who've come together, and all the dons of the bar who are here today, for having put this together and to show such a united voice. And it's really reassuring to see almost 230 or 40 people joining in the event today. I'm sure there are more viewers across different platforms. And it's nice to be back, as I would say, it's like a homecoming for me, because I belong to this community more than anything else. And I will always miss not being part of the community, though I'm still there in a tangential manner. Okay, I did have the occasion to listen to some of the presentations today, and I must say that I have been, benefited by listening to how well India is doing on startups and how well startups in general are doing in the global community. It's indeed good to see that there is so much activity happening in the incubator sector, in the startup sector, in the SME sector, MSME sector. The lockdown created by the pandemic has definitely dealt a very big blow to this sector. But I do think it is in these times that IP actually becomes more and more important. Because when MSMEs, SMEs, startups have problems which are in their human resources, in their sales, in their not getting orders, not getting proper payments, it is IP which is going to actually help them, which is the intangible asset that they have, whether it is to raise finances, whether it is to pay taxes, or in whatever other manner, which the panelists have all explained to you beautifully today. So I think that during crisis situations, it is IP which is the survivor, which is the straw which you can clutch on, which can become the log, and which can finally become the building that you can, build your business upon. And the monetization aspects, the valuation aspects. I saw Mr. Nathani was there, Mr. Hemang, Mr. Premnath, and I think I saw another, Mr. Manish from the pharma sector. I saw all of them with Archana, and it was really nice to hear to all the developments that are taking place currently in this sector. And I would only like to highlight a couple of things as anecdotes from my own experience of 2 or 3 things that happened in the SME sector. The first one being, of course, the recognition that the IP policy gave to the SME sector. And it is there for everybody to read. And some of the recommendations were taken quite seriously. And I recall very clearly, one of them mentioned the taxation aspect to IP. And I remember Mr. Arun Jaitley was the finance minister at that time. And 1 or 2 days after the budget was presented, when we met him, I recall him actually saying, IPR ke liye bahut growth hona chahiye India mein for startups. So it's a personal anecdote when he said that 10% is going to be the taxation for IP-based licensing and revenues which have been earned. I don't think this aspect has got the kind of importance in the general society that it needs to get. I think it needs to be highlighted much, much more, because it's a very, very big reform. As against 25% to the corporate sector, which is the taxation. Imagine saving of 15% if you're just by being in India and by licensing IP. So I think this issue requires to be highlighted much more by the industry and by the IP community. And the second thing that I would like to mention are the amendments which were brought about in the rationalization of fee for the SMEs and the startup sector, both under patent law. I think it is very, very important that in patents, we charge a much lower fee, and the entire concept of giving facilitators for startups, I hope it has worked well. And these are 2 things that I wanted to highlight as part of the SMEs related developments which have taken place. And I do think somewhere down the line, I'm sure when we interact, I don't intend to speak for the entire half an hour. I think you'll all get bored. I think we can make it more interactive. And I think these two things do require highlighting. And wherever all of you have a chance, please highlight this so that it can be, encashed upon and used by the sector for which it is meant for. So that's insofar as the SMEs are concerned. Now the topic that everybody, I think, including the practitioners who are all online, are looking at, that is the IPAB and then the new bill, the ordinance that has come out. When I think about it, being in the thick of it all these years, when the IPAB came to be constituted, when the law came in, and when the law now has gone out, I think we need to look back and do a little bit of introspection of what went wrong. What actually went wrong? And why are we at this crossroad today? I think IP in India is at crossroads today. It has never been more challenging a development than before. This has been the biggest, I mean, it could be a game-changing development depending upon what we all do and what we all resolve to do. So let us look at what went wrong. You know, within the judicial system, we always say, bad facts make bad law. You know, you have a case which has such gross facts, so the judge has no option but to kind of twist the law to make sure that justice is done in that case. So bad facts make bad law. And you will all connect with this more than anyone. Bad design leads to a bad product. Right? These are settled concepts for all of us. So in my view, incorrect planning led to the end of the IPAB. It was planned wrongly. And what was wrong in the planning of IPAB? I think only when we identify this will we be able to decide as to what the solution to that should be. And whether the solution that has been proposed is correct, whether it needs any modifications, and if so, in what manner, and how does the IP community speak in one voice on this issue? And I must say, I do feel so closely attached to the IP sector that I do believe that I should speak frankly and give my mind, because if we don't speak up today, I don't think there will be another day when we can speak up and say what we feel. And therefore, it is necessary to be frank and to be honest, because this is an exchange of ideas. This is not a criticism of anyone or any particular institution or any particular individual. So let us look at it as a critical analysis of the IPAB and its functioning, and an analysis of what we need to do as we go forward. First of all, the biggest mistake we made was in not analyzing the statistical framework of the load of cases in different jurisdictions. In the entire history of IPAB, the statistics tell me that, I mean, I'm looking at I have statistics, I have not compiled it in the last 1.5 years, and most of it has been during lockdown. So I guess as of the end of 2019, I can speak about the statistics. The statistics show that I'm talking about very, very broad figures, not minute figures. In trademarks, Delhi has, in terms of filings, a huge number, which could be to the tune of maybe approximately, I would say, total filings in the IPAB in the 11 years was 7,167. It may be changed. I'm sure Justice Manmohan Singh would have the latest statistics, maybe about 100 or 200 cases more. Let me take it as 7,300 total. Patents, trademarks, copyrights, designs. A bulk of it was from Delhi in trademarks, and then Bombay with just a little less. Madras, maybe half of Delhi. Ahmedabad and Calcutta, half of Madras. That's the broad percentage. In patents, it's not very, very different. Delhi had about a gross filing of maybe about, and I can give you the figures. It was about 920 cases, total filing. So about 1,000 cases in Delhi, across the country. And what were disposed of were only about 300 to 400 cases. Okay, so we have a substantial amount of number of cases which are pending. So as on today, if you go to the pendencies, so when we created the IPAB, we did not see as to where the bulk of the work was coming from, right? We decided to headquarter it in Madras. I'm not saying there is anything wrong with Madras. No, there is nothing wrong with Madras. But while keeping the headquarters in Madras, did we do enough to all the other jurisdictions which had the bulk of cases? The answer is a big no. It's an absolute big no, because I recall how challenging it was for us to get this Delhi office of IPAB created. APA filed the writ in the High Court to get the chairperson appointed, Justice Prabha Devan. I recall we fought for 2 years. There was a vacancy for 2 years and we couldn't get a chairperson at that time. So we are looking at about 900 or 1,000 cases in Delhi, about 800 cases in Mumbai, 500 cases in Madras, 200 to 300 cases in Ahmedabad, Calcutta on trademarks, about 250 to 300 cases in patents in Delhi, 200 in Chennai, about 150 in both Mumbai and Calcutta on patents. So the total pendencies as of today, the total disposal in IPAB would have been around 3,500 and the total pendency would be about 4,000 today. These are very, very broad figures. I'm not going into the nitty-gritty. So if we have 4,000 cases pending today, where are they going to go? That will be the way forward that we're looking at when we look at the new bill or the amendment which has happened. Even before that, before we blame anyone who manned the IPAB, the biggest problem with the IPAB has been the lack of appointments in the IPAB, timely appointments, which is something which has plagued not just this tribunal, but almost every other tribunal which we are aware of, including the judiciary, the higher judiciary. We all know about 45% of the High Court judges' positions today are still vacant. Let us believe one thing, it is not an ego issue between the judiciary and the government. It ought not to be. When appointments are concerned, we both are two wheels of the same motorbike. Appointments have to be made in close cooperation with each other. It cannot be made an issue between the two institutions, and it ought not to become. What is the second big problem that we've had in the IPAB? The IPAB did not have sufficient autonomy and financial independence. The IPAB generated more revenues than it spent. Those revenues went into the government coffers, but the IPAB could not draw from those revenues. The chairperson of the IPAB had to literally struggle to keep his staff, to keep her staff, to keep the offices running. So financial independence was not there, autonomy was not there. Third, the expectations from the IPAB were very high, but we did not make sufficient investment in that. Fourth, as a concomitant of the first issue that we could not make proper appointments, one reason was also the fact that well-qualified applicants were not there. Why did we not have well-qualified applicants? Because of the kind of conditions we put on them. You cannot practice, you cannot, once you've held a member's position, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. There were issues. We have still not opened up as a society to believe that once a person dons a position, if you've appointed a person on that position, you have to trust that person to be transparent, independent, fair. In the UK, you are aware, High Court judges can be appointed and they can go back and practice. Why is that system, which is so evolved, allow it, whereas in India, we don't allow it? We don't allow people who've been members in the IPAB to practice in the IPAB again. Maybe you can have a cooling off period. So most of the practicing good lawyers never applied for positions in the IPAB. This was another big problem, as institutional problems that we faced. Now let's look at another important statistic. What were the periods when we did not have any chairperson in the IPAB? I have calculated it, and you will be surprised. Out of a total number of years, IPAB was notified in September of 2003, right? So we're talking about 17 and a half years. In those 17 and a half years, 6.5 years, the IPAB did not have a chairperson. So we're only talking about 11 years. So more than 1/3 of the time of the IPAB being in operation, there was no chairperson. That's indeed an absolute tragedy. So with this kind of a formula, starting with the wrong planning, non-analysis of statistics, and the case notes, and all the 4-5 big issue disadvantages, and the vacancies, the IPAB was a sure shot failure. Conceptually, it was an excellent idea. Like a large number of things in our country, concepts are good, implementation is bad. That's what happened to the IPAB. And this will continue to happen now if we don't take the correct remedial steps in the commercial courts, in the rationalization of tribunals bill, the ordinance which has just come out. There are some fundamental errors in that law which need to be corrected. And if we don't correct those, we will see a bigger mess than what the IPAB created. And this is absolutely a reality check for everyone who is involved, including the lawyers, the industry, we judges, the government, everyone else. And I'm glad we have a large number of these stakeholders here today. If we don't take the remedial corrective measures, we are bound to have another problem as we go forward. Okay. Now let us look at what has happened in the ordinance and the rationalization bill. According to me, for most practitioners who are here, anyone who has more than 20 years of practice, so I think I now belong to the older community, though I feel very young, I must say. So I think life has come a full circle for IP and the IP community. We did face a large number of, I remember we having meetings when the first Doda House judgment came. Oh my God, the entire jurisdiction issue has been, put at a knot for us, and we're all going to suffer. And I think a Doda House would be like a speck when we look at what is happening today. It is nothing compared to what we are going to face now. So the rationalization bill, IP has come a full circle, and the IP litigation has come a full circle. And just to give you an idea of what we are going to be dealing with, and I can only speak from the perspective of Delhi because I do not have data relating to other courts. So let me tell you what is the position in Delhi High Court. This is again as of last year that this data was collected, because after that we've not had a chance to collect the data. So the total number of pending IPR cases in the Delhi High Court today would be about 1,200 suits and about 200 writs, appeals, etc. So we're looking at about 1,400 petitions as a whole, cases as a whole. And you add to this the cases from the IPAB, which would be at least a total of another 900 plus 215 patents and about 700 in copyrights. So that makes it about 1,800. Even if I take it as a total 2,000, so we are looking at 2,000 plus 1,500 or 1,400 in Delhi, right? Now, out of these, the question will be whether these cases will go to the commercial courts or to the commercial division. I can see Mr. Raghavendra has switched off. I hope he's there. This is a main issue which I would like to highlight about this bill and the ordinance. There is a big discrepancy in the bill, and that is, as far as copyright is concerned, the cases are to be transferred to the commercial court. As far as patents and trademarks is concerned, I think it is to be transferred to the commercial division. Does anyone have a different view on this? I mean, I would like to understand if I have analyzed it correctly. Justice Manmohan Singh, am I right?
Yes, absolutely. You are right.
So the biggest problem that I think we are going to face is with replacing the appellate board under the Copyright Act with the commercial court. That is a sure recipe for disaster. It's an absolute disastrous provision, because what will happen is, if one has an understanding of all the copyright litigation that happens in our country, very few cases relate to, for example, individual rectifications, individual copyright registrations, etc. The bigger stake cases would now be in the realm of copyright licensing, assignments, royalties for music, and relating to the music industry, film industry, and other kind of licensing, statutory licensing. Now, according to me, to send these cases as per jurisdiction to commercial courts across the country would result in complete mayhem. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Mr. Raghavendra, am I correct that all copyright cases will now go to the commercial court and not the commercial division? Is that correct?
It is a little different. Dedicated commercial courts, their cases, all infringement cases, which has a specified value of commercial dispute.
No, I'm not talking of infringement.
But all other issues which Copyright Board is to do as per the Act, all will go to the single judge, original side commercial bench of a High Court, 25 High Courts. So this is even, I'm not clear because I'm not a party to this drafting.
I don't think so. There is a drafting error there. You please get it. Because according to me, all the section 31, 31D, 31C licensing issues go to the commercial court and not to the High Court. It should be replaced with the High Court. And preferably it should be High Courts which are dealing with original side, because otherwise there will be a lot of confusion.
Yeah, even I feel it should not be going to the district dedicated commercial.
Yeah. So this major issue we'll have to sort out in the bill.
But what I understand there is also commercial bench, section 3. So they may be, it has to be.
Let me finish, Mr. Anand. So in the Patents Act and in the Trademark Act, there is no problem. I think all the cases will go to the High Courts, where there is a commercial division, otherwise the High Court wherever the case would be of jurisdiction. Now let us presume that in Delhi High Court, we get about 4,000 cases because of this transfer. If we bring everything to the original side, as it currently exists, that would create too much of a burden. And I think the time has come, despite the reservations certain practitioners may have expressed, to create the IP divisions in our High Courts now. This is the right time to create the IP divisions, because according to me, the IP divisions would become extremely, when I say IP division, please don't misunderstand me to say an IP judge. No, that is not the intention. The intention is not to have one IP judge running an IP division. No. When I mean IP division, it will be a division in the High Court, just like the income tax bench or the company court, which we used to have in almost all High Courts, the arbitration benches. We should have an IP division in the High Court, which is regulated by its own procedure. The procedure for the IP division will bring the consistency across the country. There should be an IP divisions law, which should be now brought in India to create IP divisions in all the 5 or 6 high courts. Again, after analyzing the number of IP cases pending in those particular cities. The IP divisions should be the first point of contact for all cases which are coming from the IPAB and for any cases which are above a particular monetary value. And it should be manned by at least 2 judges. They may or may not be experts, but as experience has shown us, both in the high court level, across the high courts, even non-IP judges are very well capable of handling IPR matters. There is no need to have IPR judges, but we need to have judges who operate in a particular system. This IP division should be having, there are IP courts and IP divisions in almost several countries in the world, like the UK, Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, Thailand. Almost all of these countries have IP divisions, and we should not shun away from that. It should have a specific rules and procedural framework. There should be a proper technical advisory system. It should be properly manned by IPR judges who are familiar with IP. They need not be experts in IP. It should have a proper advisory board consisting of scientific experts who advise the judges and who are taken on their panel. They are there and their independence, etc., cannot be questioned. They are there to work and assist the IP judges, just the way we have law researchers now. The patent office and the trademark office could be the catchment area for such experts. Controllers or deputy controllers level officers should be posted in the IP divisions for maybe 3 years or 5 years, just like it is done in Japan, so that these officers who then take the decisions in the patent and the trademark office are also having experience of how courts function and the judicial discipline. So they will be expertise, they will have the expertise. If the judge has a doubt, he or she would not be looking outside to see as to what is the issue in this. It could be an issue relating to organic chemistry. It could be an issue relating to an electronic patent. It could be an issue relating to biotechnology or to a plant variety. The judge can have a frank and fair discussion with an in-house expert who he or she knows that he's not affected by any outside influence. So once you create the IP division, it will be the time to get all IPR cases into this division and thereafter an appeal to the Supreme Court, which will ensure that, there is a proper streamlining, expeditious disposal will happen, and consistency in decision-making is there across the country. And judges don't feel pressurized in dealing with patent-related and technical-related matters. Let me tell you, in patent infringement matters, whenever there is a lot of technicalities involved, as is the general human tendency, we all tend to avoid it, right? There is an apprehension. Am I doing the right thing? And so judges need hand-holding as well. And therefore, for example, even if I may be an IPR expert lawyer or a judge, even when I realize that there is an area which I'm not familiar with, I would feel so much better if I can speak to an expert in the area and who can tell me clearly that this is right and this is wrong. Judges may need to be tuitioned on even something very small as what is organic and what is inorganic. There's nothing wrong in a judge having a doubt, but the judge should be able to get an answer straight away without a tangent being put into it through the lawyers or the experts of the parties. So I think the time has come that practitioners and the IP community should completely support the creation of IP divisions. If we don't do that, I don't think the deluge of cases coming from the IPAB, we will just keep adding to the pendencies, and I don't think we will be able to handle this entire issue. So lastly, I would like to end by saying, I'm sorry, I think I took up a little more time than what is allotted to me. I would like to only end by saying There is one more area where I would like to give a message to the IP community. And that is that, as I started by saying, everything that IPR does is for the human race. And when IP comes in conflict with human life, the time has come to recalibrate. This pandemic has shown us that it is time to recalibrate. I'm a bit saddened, I must say, that I do not see any big IP voices in India speaking about this. We need to speak about this in one voice and say, the time has come to not just think about our own law firms, our own practices, our own billings, our own client base. Time has come to actually think and reflect as a country. Are we doing the right thing right now during a pandemic? Why are there no voices speaking from the IP community? I'm asking this question to the community today. I would like the community to answer this by remembering one thing, that in our constitution, the right to life comes as a fundamental right. The right to protect innovation or recognize a scientific temper comes in the directive principles of state policy. Please remember the constitutional mandate that the right to life is most important. IP should not delineate itself from humanity and human life. I myself have been a victim of COVID, and I recall day in and day out, morning to evening, we are all struggling to make medicines available to our friends, relatives, colleagues, their families. Why is the IP community not coming forward? Why have we not tapped all our clients to say, look here, we need to make a difference today. Let us make it available to everyone who needs it. I would like to see that kind of a message coming from the IP community today. And please reflect upon this. Please think about it. And please come out with the leadership that you have, with the business mind that all of you have. I'm sure you can create a task force called the IP COVID-19 Task Force. Please create it for India. And come and make everything available. Tap all your resources. Speak to everybody whom you know and make it available to everyone who needs it. We need to connect back to the citizens of this country. Let us not alienate ourselves from it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I sounded emotional.
I don't know, organizers, Akshay, do we have some few questions or do we go to the next?
Excuse me, ma'am. I have a small clarification. Yes. I couldn't interrupt Madam Justice too much. She was having one doubt on the question of the commercial code inserted in the bill. I mean, that is which was in the bill. Now it's in the ordinance. The definition portion of the ordinance or the bill clearly says commercial code for the, it is FA, it is a section 4 and FA para. Commercial code for the purposes of any state means commercial code constituted under section 3 or the commercial division of a high court constitution under section 4 of the Commercial Code Act 2015. So it is clear that all copyright matters mentioned in the Copyright Act, which earlier Copyright Board or IPAB used to do, will go to High Court Commercial Bench, single judge, original side commercial bench.
If that can be clarified, it will be very good.
Yeah, yeah. Definition is clearly mentioned.
I don't think the definition is clear. I don't want to enter into a debate. There is a problem. Please correct it.
There is a problem.
Okay. Are there any questions that we take up?
Malathi ma'am, there's a very general question in
yes.
the Q&A box, and it's from an anonymous attendee. The question is here, and I will leave it on you whether we should address it.
There is one question from anonymous attendee. The question is whether there will be smoothing in dealing with IP matters such as serving notices to other parties before the courts after the abolishment of the Honorable IPAB. Whether there will be an establishment of a special IP courts besides commercial court in order to minimize the burden of litigation on the courts.
I think, Malathi, that's exactly what I spoke about.
Yes.
Very happy the Commercial Court Act is working, because if you see, the Delhi High Court amended its rules after 50 years and we've rationalized the rules. In my own experience on the original side, I must say that from this time of filing of plaint till admission and denial and issues, we were, when I was sitting in the original side, we were able to reach the issue stage 6 to 8 months after the suit was filed, which used to earlier take 3 to 4 years. So the commercial court provisions are very good. I think we can make our rules for IP courts in the same way, on the same lines, and it can be rationalized and it should work well. But it requires a lot of application of mind at governmental level.
Yeah, and I think we also need rules quickly, because now there'll be transfer from IPAB to different courts. And there are also confusion about some of them, like the patent matters we file in Delhi, but it is a Calcutta controller giving the rejection. Where do we go and file? It was one IPAB, we could file everything in IPAB. But now the question is, should it be Delhi where I filed it, or should it be Calcutta where the controller was the one who gave the refusal order?
So all this should be clarified in the law, and if it is not clarified, I'm sure 1 or 2 judgments will come out and it will get clarified.
Yeah, and also rules and everything. We are looking forward to that. And I thank you, Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh, for a very nice delivery. It is not that we are just telling you this. I was very, very impressed by you, by giving out all the problems and also solutions. I mean, how do we go about it? And I like the way you were very frank and you said it will be a complete disaster if things are not taken up quickly. I will leave it right now. I don't think we have time. Anybody else?
Malathi ma'am, I think we should proceed to the next session.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh, for an eloquent presentation and very nice delivery.
I don't know if I was presenting at all. I was actually just speaking from my heart.
That is what I meant by presentation. When I meant you presented the thing so well.
Thank you.
About giving numbers. I didn't mean a presentation, but presenting the problem and the solution.
It is.
It's an honor for all of us that you could spend time here.
I'm enjoying seeing everybody. Thank you, Archana. I couldn't mention your name. I can see Mr. Ananthakrishnan from Novartis. What are you doing now, Mr. Ananthakrishnan? Nice to see you.
He is the DG of the OPPI.
Okay.
And
nice to meet all of you. And to all those whom I cannot see on the panel, I know all of you are friends, colleagues at the bar. Keep safe, everybody. Take care of yourselves and take care of your near and dear ones. And I'm sure the community should continue to help each other the way.
Can everybody just put on their photos, videos, so that we can take a photo of everybody? Akshay, you'll do that. Manish?
He's doing what students do in classes nowadays.
Yes, I know.
Malathi ma'am, please don't bother with your cell phone.
Young, we make it old, but I like the enthusiasm and the passion, Justice Prathiba.
Okay, there he is.
Thank you very much.
आपको bunk नहीं करने दिया किसी ने.
Okay. I will now thank the
thank you.
The special address given by Justice Prathiba Singh. Thanks a lot, ma'am, and stay safe.
Thank you.
I would now ask Hemang Singh, President of AIPPI-India Group, to take on and do the second session. And over to you, Hemang Singh. Thank you.
Thank you, Malathi. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, I would say that the stage has been set by Justice Prathiba M Singh to what we are going to be discussing. And it was very heartening to see that she has analyzed the issue pretty well for and against in terms of what has happened and how we can address it. But the fact is that at the moment we are in a mess. And the mess is that there were so many cases which are pending before IPAB was pending before IPAB. What happened to those cases? Where do they go? When would they be heard? And how they will be heard, by whom they will be heard? You know, there are patent appeals which are pending, which are going to expire. We don't even know as to what is the mechanism in which the transfer is going to take place. Now, the question is, as Justice Prathiba M. Singh has very correctly said, and I felt very nice to hear that, she said that conceptually IPAB was a great concept. It's so true. And if you look at the track record, and again, she's very correctly pointed out that it has not been able to function effectively and efficiently for 1/3 of its term, because either there was no chairman, or there was no vice chairman, or there were no technical members. There were infrastructure challenges. And now, during the pandemic, for last 6 months, I must give credit to Justice Manmohan Singh that despite the challenges, he had all the technical members appointed. The technical members were doing great work. For the first time, there was great disposal taking place. There were great judgments that were coming from IPAB. Everybody was raving and praising how they are coping up with all the challenges and doing a great work. For the first time, a lovely concept was translating into a lovely and effective implementation. Where was the crashing hurry to remove it, abolish it? And why? And why without any deliberation? And why without any mechanism in place to address the challenges? So the question that we are seeking to debate today is, if a concept was so good, and if the failure was on part of the government to make it work, was the solution to make it work, or was the solution to take away the concept? Is a question I can't understand. Today we are talking about creating a new setup, having abolished a setup which was working so well. So well. Can you think of the plight of the litigants who now have to go to different high courts, follow different procedures, different practices, engage different set of lawyers, and you don't know what is the level of domain knowledge which you will find? Obviously, the High Court judges are brilliant, but they need to have that domain knowledge, which comes with a period of time of having handled several cases. How long will that take to happen? And then the roster changes, and then you have a new set of judges. Here you had a centralized, unified mechanism of experts who had the expertise, domain knowledge, and were able to dispose of the matter. I can tell you from my personal experience, an appeal from refusal of a patent by the controller was taken up and disposed of within 3 months. A contested order in an opposition where a patent was cancelled, despite pandemic, was taken up, disposed of within less than a year. Can we think of it happening in the High Court? I have my serious doubts. And if you look at what was the objective behind creating of IPAB, I have before me the message which says the Minister of Commerce provided the rationale behind creating IPAB in 1999, to be precise, 22nd December 1999. It says, to provide for an appellate authority for speedy disposal of appeals and rectification applications which lie before High Court. Are we saying that there's going to be a speedier disposal now before the High Court? If not, then how that objective has changed. The second rationale which is given is the cost. But as Justice Prathiba Singh also said, and as the statistics will also reveal, IPAB was consuming 0.15% of the revenue estimate budget of DPIIT. 0.15%. Is that a drain on the exchequer? I have no clue as to what is the rationale behind this decision. And I also have no clue what lies ahead, how we are going to advise our client as to when would they get their orders. Anyway, I'm just a moderator. I'm not a speaker. I don't want to get into this discussion, sharing my views, but I feel very strongly about it. And I therefore believed that this is the time we must have this discussion. And this is the time we, I must say, are having this discussion, and we couldn't have had a better panel. We have before us Justice Manmohan Singh. Justice Manmohan Singh needs no introduction, but nevertheless, just to complete a formality, I would say, he had the expertise in all respect. He was a practicing IP attorney for several years. 2008, he was elevated as the High Court judge. 2016, he retired. 2018, he was appointed as the IPAB chairperson. And just look at the track record. Look at the disposal. Despite the fact that he did not have the technical members for almost a year. Well, we will like to hear Justice Manmohan Singh's view on what we thereafter have Mr. G.R. Raghavendra Ji, Joint Secretary, Department of Justice, Ministry of Law and Justice. He is the face today of the government and therefore a right person to educate us in terms of what lies ahead, what do we anticipate, how do we go forward. Mr. Raghavendra, he is the Mission Director for the National Mission for Justice Delivery Legal Reforms. He is driving policy reforms for improving enforcing contracts parameter under the Ease of Doing Business and E-Courts projects. He was a Joint Secretary in the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and also held the position of Registrar of Copyrights earlier. We thereafter have Mr. K.G. Anand Krishna, Director General, OPPI, that's the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India. Mr. Anand Krishnan represents research-based pharmaceutical companies in India and is the mentor for healthcare startups apart from being on advisory panel of several institutions. Mr. Anand Krishnan represents the industry perspective. So we have the IPAB perspective, the judiciary perspective from Justice Manmohan Singh. We have the government perspective from Mr. Raghavendra, and we have the industry perspective from Mr. Anand Krishnan. Let's hear them, and after that, let's see if we are able to find some guidance as to how we can go about it. With that, I will hand it over to Justice Manmohan Singh. Please, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. Hon'ble Ms. Justice Prathiba M. Singh, Sudeep Chatterjee, Archana Shanker ji, Manish Tandon ji, Premnath B, Hemang Shah ji, Dr. Nathani ji, Hemang Singh, Dr. G.R. Raghavan ji, K.G. Anand Krishnan ji, Gauri Kumar ji, Akshay Kumar ji. Today I'm very happy to be here to give my point of view with regard to the abolition of IPAB. Now, I've listened so many speakers earlier prior to Honorable Ms. Justice Prathiba M. Singh, and all the speakers have spoken very well. I must say, I must appreciate them. The similar position is of Justice Prathiba M. Singh. She has basically spoken so well, and she has given both point of view, and on many figure and other thing, I totally agree. And whatever suggestion and solutions given by Honorable Ms. Justice Prathiba M. Singh, I totally agree, and I request that basically it should be done in the similar manner. And I'm very much hopeful that she may be able to convey our message. Now, first of all, I want to give little bit history of IPAB. Hemang Singh has already mentioned, IPAB was established on 15th of September 2003. The situation has occurred because India had in earlier to 2009 signed the TRIP agreement, and in order to oblige the TRIP agreement, the bill was introduced in Parliament in 2009, each and everything was discussed. The main point before the parliament was that there should be some separate appellate tribunal who can dispose of the pending appeals in various high courts as well as the rectification. The bill was discussed in parliament and it was passed. Then the amendments were carried out accordingly in the Trademark Act. In April 2007, patent cases were transferred before IPAB, and in May 2017, Copyright Board and all other petitions were merged with the IPAB. I agree, and I totally agree with Prathiba M saying that off and on, sometime members were not there, sometime chairman was not there, and many times the IPAB was not working. I totally agree. I also agree with the figure given by Honorable Ms. Justice Prathiba M Singh. Approximately the figures are same, that about 300 during this period, 2003 till February 2021, more than 3,500 cases were decided, and about 4,000 cases are pending before IPAB. And most of the cases, I will give the figure that most of the cases are more than 60 to 65% are from Delhi zone, and second number is Mumbai, about 20%, and about 8 to 9% are from Chennai, and rest of the 6% are from Ahmedabad and Calcutta zone. It is also the admitted position that between I joined IPAB on 1st of January 2018. Earlier, I was reluctant to join, but anyway, I have joined it because additional charge was given to me. And during my period also, Justice Prathiba M Singh is absolutely correct. Sometimes members were not there. Sometimes the writ was filed before the High Court. High Court has allowed us to hear the matter, and ultimately we were able to decide 1,500 cases. And in the month of August 2020, by that time, all the technical members were appointed.
Justice Manmohan has logged out. I think he'll have to log in again. Mr. Hemang, can you please carry on the session meanwhile?
Okay. So, well, we will wait for Justice Manmohan Singh to join back. In the meanwhile, then, may I request Mr. Raghavendra to share your thoughts on the subject if we do not have Justice Singh joining in next 30 seconds or whatever.
Thank you, Mr. Hemant. Good evening, everyone. Namaskar. I would like to pay my regards again to Justice Prathiba Singh, my old friend. Madam, you made an excellent presentation, especially your idea, the idea of IP division in high courts in the new regime is an excellent suggestion. And also Justice Manmohan Singh ji, and both have been impressive people when I was a student of law. As a registrar of copyright, I learned a lot from their judgments. And respected other panel members, Sri K.G. Ananthakrishnan, and also one of the hosts, Srimati Malathi Lakshmikumaran, and Mrs. Shanker, and organizers, APAA and AIPPI. The ordinance came into effect from 4th of April because it was required as Parliament was not in the session, and the tribunal reforms and rationalization bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha on 13th February, which could not be passed because of rush in the Parliament to clear other important bills. Now this ordinance has become act. Yeah, sir, you can continue.
Yes. I'm extremely very sorry. I was having some Wi-Fi problem in this area, So I agree with agree with the position that about 4,000 cases are pending, and but my view is totally different while seeing all these issues. This in August 2020, members were appointed, technical members were appointed. It is a specialized tribunal. And just basically, I want to, in 1 minute, I want to give the picture of their qualification. The patent technical member worked in the patent office for about 27 years. For 17 years, he was the controller of patent. With regard to the trademarks members, technical members, as well as the copyright members, I can say we have gone through their CV. They are first class, first student from the college as well as law college. And they were having the practice of about 10 to 15 years in the high courts. They have given the copies of the judgment, detail of the cases they have handled, and ultimately they were appointed. And during this period, September till February 2021, we were able to decide more than 500 cases. Now, situation here is little different. I've gone through, I can tell you, during this 3 years period, I've gone through each and every case pending before IPAB. And I'm making the statement with fully responsible person, as a responsible person. If you see all the files, you will find that 70% cases pending before the IPAB were of very small nature. I totally agree with Justice Prathiba M saying that no doubt I was also the part of the High Court. Judges are very competent. They are brilliant. They can accept any challenge. They can decide any matter. No problem at all. And I also agree with Justice Prathiba M saying that many judgments given by the High Court, by the judges who are not practicing on IP side, they are the landmark judgment. And classic example I can give is Bishwanath Chaudhary case, which is decided by the Supreme Court in 1981, page AI, which was reported in AIR 1981, page 1444. The judge never dealt with patent cases. The judge never done IP work, and still just see landmark judgments are given. The similar is the position of high courts. Whirlpool case, Mercedes-Benz case, those judges have not decided. They were never practiced on IPR side. Still they have given the judgment. But situation here is little bit different. I say if the matters will go to the High Court after abolition of the IPAB, at first place, I wish to state why IPAB should be abolished. That was the thing. As far as the High Court is concerned, if the entire infrastructure is created, all the judges are appointed and commercial, they will sit on the commercial side, no problem at all if they will do. But here, basically, we are dealing with the specialized tribunal where the experts were appointed, and 70% work is of very small nature of work. I can give you the example because most in most of the cases were where the rules were not followed and the procedure was not followed. I can give one or two example of trademarks and one or two example on patent. So whatever the example in trademarks, suppose the registration of the trademark was already granted earlier as a word per se, and then the second application was filed for label mark, still the application was refused. So basically, if the matter comes before the IPAB, on the first date itself or the second day itself, they used to decide that what is the problem with you. Why? Basically, because the objection was raised by the applicant that my trademark is already registered. and my trademark is registered in many overseas countries. Why basically this thing has not been considered? My evidence has not been considered, filed by way of affidavit. Details are not considered. Only one cyclostyle paper is there in mechanical form. I refuse the application. So High Court is not actually meant for these small things. High Court is meant for very big thing, for commercial matter. If we transfer about 3,000 cases or 4,000 cases to the High Court, there will be total jam pack. I remember when I was sitting in Delhi, about 100 matters are listed Delhi, on Delhi region. So I say, if such a big infrastructure is created in the High Court, then there is no problem at all. But the point is that situation may come, it may not come. We can basically assess it next year, IP day, no problem at all. But the point here is, if the 70% work can be disposed of in the first date or second date itself by the IPAB, where is the question of sending the matter to the High Courts? It can be disposed of before the IPAB itself. It could have been, but it has not happened. Just see about the patent cases. Justice Prathiba M is absolutely right that there are about 1,000 patent cases. Patent appeals were pending. The patent appeals as well as the petition under Section 64 for revocation of patent were pending before IPAB. But have any issue has been examined by the government? The answer is, I think they have not studied the file. They have not gone through the files pending before the IPAB. 90% cases, I am telling you, 90% appeals are pertaining to the matters where the application for registration of the patent was refused on the 2-3 grounds. Number one, that there is a prior art. Number two, that the procedure lacks, evidence is taken on record, but the application was refused. I say, when the prior art, when the 100 countries have already granted the registration of a prior art, after raising the objection, if those objections are waived by those countries, they have given the finding on that. I know under the Indian Patent Act, those may not be binding upon us, but at least basically some reference can be taken, some liberal view should be taken. And these basically, when these 90% application came up before us, one by one, we were taking the patent appeals, and we found that these are very unreasonable orders. Many of the orders are very unreasonable. They could have been decided in the positive way. But basically, whenever we feel that the justice has not been done, we set aside the order. And Anand Krishnanji must be aware that most of the applications are filed by the pharma company, Indian pharma company. And Indian pharma company, which is India is known for Indian pharma company, and these applications could have been decided by the IPAB. I agree with Prathiba M saying that there are 5% cases which are very complicated in nature. I agree. I also agree that basically suits are pending before the High Court for infringement of patent, or suits are filed before the High Court for infringement of trademark, and rectification was filed here or revocation was filed here. I say at the best, basically these two proceedings should have been tagged with the suit for infringement as well as infringement of trademark, so that everything should be expedited. But now the position here is that only just for the sake of 20% cases where the rectification or revocation, and Hemang Singh is right that we have decided so many matters within 6 months: patent rectification, trademark rectification within 6 months. Now, there is a reason behind it. Why, how basically we are able to decide. Otherwise, we could not, while sitting in the High Court, it is very difficult to decide the patent rectification within 4 months, within 6 months, because there is a procedure. We have to go as per the rules. We have to go as per the act. which are to be applicable before the High Court. But before IPAB, if you read Rule 8, Rule 10, and Rule 11 together, the entire evidence has to be filed along with the petition as well as in the counter statement. If the entire evidence is to be filed with the petition and counter statement within 2 months, then the revocation petition can be decided as early as possible, subject to any application filed by the other party for additional evidence or otherwise. So if these appeals will go to the High Court, naturally much time will be taken. Much time will be taken because there is a complete procedure. Although in commercial court that the court can manage it in their own manner. But I say in normal cases, in patent case, if you read section 104 to 107, all the grounds are to be taken by the court, and they will decide each and every ground by way of evidence. And when the expert is appointed, then 6 months time is given after framing of issues, and we know the result, that how many cases are decided by the High Court. I totally agree with the Honorable Judge that we must have some arrangement that all the cases should be decided as early as possible in patent cases. But the position here is that situation is entirely different between two, before IPAB, before court. IPAB can decide any revocation petition, any rectification petition within 6 months. But that similar situation cannot happen in the High Court. No, basically, the impression is given to us that few people were not happy, and the IPAB will failure because of many reasons, because of appointment by the government or otherwise. I say today is a very lucky day. Today is IP day. Almost all the councils are sitting here who are appearing before us. I say even if 5% council will tell before us after this session that IPAB must be abolished, I will salute them. I will say that you should basically take up all the matters tomorrow, no problem at all. But that situation is not there. Second position, basically, the impression was given that they may not be working expeditiously. I say we have given about 3,500 judgments by the IPAB. See the record. Government should see the record that how many cases, how many orders have been challenged before the High Court? Not even 5%. How many orders have been set aside? Not even 1%. Record is there. I've seen each and everything. And I'm telling you that if that situation is there, why IPAB has been abolished? And secondly, it is informed to us that IPAB has been abolished because members were not being appointed, chairman sometimes was not there. I agree. I totally agree with the suggestion given by many. I totally agree. The technical members or chairman could have been appointed. The process should have continued 6 months in advance, but it has not happened. But just see the other tribunals, where basically tribunals, there is no member, there is no chairman. I can give you one example of PMLA. There is not a single member, there is no chairman. Still, that tribunal is continuing. I said that basically that tool cannot apply here. If some members are not there, chairman, it is happening everywhere. Either basically it's the similar position, whatever basically we have been informed, that's because the chairman was not appointed, members are not appointed. The similar is the position of judges are not being appointed. If the IPAB is not able to do the thing because of members and chairman, then how basically situation can be created there in the High Court? Because High Court, there is no dispute that the High Courts, all the High Courts are shortage of judges. They are working of almost 50% judges, and they are working very hard. And every day they are deciding so many matters. And just, I will give you another example. Hemang Singh has raised it, that there is a notification that in COVID-19, only most urgent matter of 2021 will be taken up. Just see, No, basically, we have left the IPAB office in March. We are in almost end of April. Nothing has happened. Suppose some urgencies there were so many matters we kept for disposal because the patent was expiring in the month of March or April or May or July. People were making the request that at least we will not file any suit for infringement of patent. At least our patent may be acknowledged by the IPAB because it will expire in July. We are ready to give the undertaking that we will not file a case. That situation may also not happen. If somebody will take the view, all right, we will create the same infrastructure in the High Court within 2 months, within 1 month, within 6 months, no problem at all. We are basically, it is for the government to decide. But the point here is we have to see the practical difficulty and ground situation. Now, only 1 or 2 things I will add that nobody knows when this COVID situation is ended. We were never discussed. There was no discussion. There were no suggestion. I say if basically specialized tribunal is being abolished, at least some discussion should be taken place. At least some suggestions are taken. At least because on the other hand, I am telling you, we have got the very big office in Shastri Bhavan at Chennai. Only 2-3 months back, we were given very large space everywhere in Delhi also. And 2 days back, staff of the IPAB went to Nagpur because they were creating some new office in Nagpur. And suddenly, basically, we have got the information that the bill has been introduced before the Parliament on 11th of February 2021 and 12th of January. The order came from the Supreme Court, and ultimately, this ordinance has come. Ordinance has come and it has been removed. Now, the point here is that we must consider that IPAB is the expert body. Technical members are the expert. In India is renowned by the pharma industry. And still basically the tribunal is abolished. All the matters till 2020 may not be considered by the courts unless basically COVID is over or new establishment is there before the high courts. I say, if you want to do it, you take the suggestion. I'm not basically against the sending the matter to the high court. I was the part of the high court. And if basically everything is created, there is no problem at all. But nothing has happened. And what will happen? Suppose this COVID-19 may continue for another year. That what will happen to those cases? 4,000 cases pending. And at the same time, I'm telling you, I could have given the guarantee if suppose I meet somebody, I could have given the guarantee that give me 2 years time, I will finish each and every matter because members are there, technical members are full-fledged technical members are there. I can give in writing. I could have given in writing that 2 years time you give me, you will see that IPAB will not have any matter at all. Only fresh filing will be considered by the IPAB. But that has not happened because I'm the last person to say that the matter should not be sent to the High Court. I say earlier, prior to 15th of September 2003, matters were being dealt by the High Court. And if you read the Parliament debate, in the Parliament debate, Mr. Hemang Singh was mentioned the date even December 99. In the debate, it was mentioned that we are doing it because of the TRIP agreement and we want to have the IPAB, although the appeals are 60 to 80 appeals per year in the High Court, but we want that independent forum should be there because courts are enforcement court and here basically administrative work, registering work can be done by the IPAB. And purpose was that all the appeals should be disposed of as early as possible. That was the main reason. That was the main reason. And therefore IPAB was established. This is not mistake of any member, or this is not basically mistake of any chairman. And I respect all the chairmen, I respect all the members, whosoever has come before IPAB with great passion, they have done the work. Therefore, basically, more than 3,500 cases are decided. No full-fledged members, technical members are appointed. First time in August 2020, they started working from September 2020. The IPAB was abolished in March, about 5.5 months. 500 cases, more than 500 cases were decided. More than 150 of patent cases were decided in pharma industry. I say, please have a plight. Please have a pain. You know, these members have left the practice. You know, they were having a very roaring practice in the high courts. And when they were appointed, they were given the assurance that they will be reconsidered after the expiry of 4 years. And they have returned back all the files. They cannot practice now on the trademark office as per the rule. Honorable Ms. Justice Prathiba M was rightly say where they should go. Where they should go. I say, please, for that reason, I say that it should have been done in a good fashion, that discussion should be there. Discussion should have been there. And ultimately, if we are not able to satisfy the concerned ministry, then IPAB could have been removed. We would have given more suggestion that, all right, if you want to abolish the IPAB, please take these steps so that basically nobody should feel uncomfortable. Everybody should feel very happy. Now, I wish to basically give, because the time is very short, I wish to give certain suggestion. I say, if you want to remove IPAB, at least basically in the ordinance, it should have been mentioned that IPAB would continue. All the rectification, revocation will be transferred to the High Court. All the fresh appeals and petition would be filed in the respective High Court. That could have been the better position. In the meanwhile, if the government is bent upon to abolish the tribunal. Now, basically, as far as the judges are concerned, Justice Prathiba Singh has spoken so well, and I agree with Justice Prathiba M Singh, and I only suggest to Prathiba M Singh, she is very able judge, she was very able counsel, and she knows each and everything about the IPR matters. I say, if you want to appoint some member, or if you want to appoint some judges from the IP community or otherwise, I will never doubt that other judges are appointed from different background, cannot decide the IPR matter. I say they can decide. At the outside, I have mentioned that most of the important judgments were given by the judges who have never practiced on IPs. I say at least longer roster should be given to the judges, so that if the one judge will understand the matter within 6 months, patent matter, he may be able to decide the patent matters next 2 years or 2.5 years, like in overseas countries, where basically rosters are given for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and so that basically one will become expert. Everything on tips, all the judgments are tips, because it is a matter of pharma industry, life and death of pharma industry. Because if the judge is expert within 6 months and his roster is changed, he is sent to criminal side or other side, labor side, labor cases are given, or some service work is given, or writ petition, he can go. I request the High Court, I request the Justice Prathiba M Singh, if you want to take up everything from the IPAB, all the files, longer roster should be given to the judge. And thirdly, basically, I say that special court should be there. All right, if the special court is not there, IP commercial courts may be there. Like in arbitration cases, 2 judges were given the work to do the arbitration matter. IP work should also be given to 2 judges who can decide only the IP matters, or those may be given to the judge who is also deciding arbitration matter. Half day he can give it to the arbitration matter, half day he can give it to the IP matter, so that proper hearing will be there. 2-3 judges can hear the IPAB matter, so that disposal can be there. But I say, for the small matter, 70% matter, 70 to 70%, what will happen to those matters? Justice Mr. Raghavendran was saying that those will go to the original site. original side judge is having so many matters, commercial matter of all category. And these are the matter which could have been decided in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes. And you ask any senior counsel, Mr. Kane is here, other counsel from Delhi, Chennai, that basically these are procedural matter. The chance could have been given to IPAB for 2 years or 1 year, so that basically rest of the out of 4,000 cases, 3,000 cases could have been decided within the period of 1 year, 1.5 years. I may not be there. Suppose I am a gone case. Some judge could have been appointed, and these out of 4,000, 3,500 matters could have been decided within 18 months or within 20 months, so that basically I am telling you, I kept in Bombay region, I kept 300 cases ready to decide within 1 week. Because this COVID problem, I could not go to Bombay. Otherwise, we could have decided 300 matters. I kept their reserve matter. I basically put up all the files. I prepare the index that 300 matters, because those are the matter where this, in some cases, compromise have arrived. In some cases, very small issues involved. No, basically all these matter 4,000 will go to the original side, or out of 4,000, 3,000 will go to the original side. What will happen? What will happen? At least 6 or 7 judges are required to handle the situation, because the point is, otherwise I was sitting in Delhi every day, me and Mr. Sanjeev Chaswal, we were having more than 100 matters daily in Delhi. Who will handle the situation? Because the judge has to do so much work in the High Court. He has got a roster of 6-7 category, because every matter, almost every second matter is a commercial matter. Like contract matter, that other matter, all are commercial matter. So basically, how this situation will be handled at that moment? Now, this basically I say, and next is that the expert can be appointed in IP, even basically expert can be appointed in trademark matter also. Like Justice Prathiba M says that expert will be appointed for recording the evidence in patent matter. Why not in trademark matter and copyright matter also? Expert can be appointed, and the matter can be sent to the mediation, so that whosoever wants to settle the matter, those matter can be settled. And I personally feel that these members, who are basically 5 members are there, 2 for trademarks, copyright, or patent, they must be basically also involved one way or the other. They are very senior counsel, and they are very expert people, you know. They know each and everything about the patent. They know each and everything about the trademark as well as the copyright, why they should suffer, why this burden has come to them. They have the family, you know, in one family, husband and wife. Husband is the member of the copyright, and wife is the member of the trademark. Just see, both have left the practice. Both have left the practice, and small children are there. And one of the member of the trademark, who is Mr. Vijay, who has come from Hyderabad to Chennai 1 week ago. In 26 January, he has transferred all the utensil from Hyderabad to Chennai with the family, wife, and everybody, so that basically he should basically consider the IPAB matter very forcefully. And he was the basically all my team, trademarks matter, copyright matters, as well as patent. They have the target that everything should be decided, all the judgments should be given within 3 days after the reserve. You know, Mr. Vijay, that other members, they used to give us, we used to discuss every day during night time, during midnight, to decide the matter within 3 days after the reserve of judgment. And I salute them. I may not meet them. I've never met them. But still I say, at least basically they should be considered somewhere here or there. Otherwise, you just see the plight of the family. Now, as far as the message to the honorable advocates, junior advocate and senior advocates are concerned, I tell them, because lastly I'm saying, because time is very short, I have a lot of points, you know. I tell them they should file the petition in a very precise manner. In the Code of Civil Procedure also, it is mentioned that the petition should be very precise. If you file the petition in 100 pages drafting, the judge is totally basically in dilemma whether to grant the relief or not. In IP matter, everything is quick relief is required in every matter. So basically, they should file a petition in a very precise manner with the written argument, so that the file will go to the judge of the High Court. He will read the argument also, so that he may make up his mind. Otherwise, it is a very big challenge before the High Court to decide all the matters, copyright, patent, and trademark matter. And lastly, I say they should not feel discouraged if their matters are not being decided, or their tribunal is abolished, because sometimes, we must take the tips from the Hindi songs also. I will just basically read 2-3 lines, and then I will close my speech, because one of the Talat Mahmood 4 lines are there. गम की अंधेरी रात में दिल को ना बेकरार कर, सुबह जरूर आएगी, सुबह का इंतजार कर. Thank you so much. Thank you. Grateful to everybody. I am grateful to all the participant to listen to me, and I will never forget you. You have given always so cooperation. I must salute them. Each and every time they prepare the written argument, they prepare the file, and they have given so much cooperation. With their cooperation, we were able to decide about 2,000 cases in 3 years' time. And I tell you, and I'm challenging it, I may not be there, I may be there, members are there, may not be there, matter may go to the High Court. If 2 years are given to us before the IPAB, you will not find even a single file in the office of the IPAB. I could have challenged them at that time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Justice Manmohan Singh, for sharing your thoughts very frankly and coming right from your heart. And a lot of questions now arise. I hope Mr. Raghavenderji would be able to throw light on some of them. I believe this is a discussion which actually required a full panel by itself. And we are absolutely terribly out of time. But nevertheless, it's too important a discussion that we are having. Even if we cross over a bit, it's perfectly fine. Raghavenderji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening to Justice Prathiba Singh ji and Justice Manmohan Singh ji, and the chair of this session, Mr. Hemang Singh, and my other person on the panel, Sri KG Ananthakrishnan ji, and Mrs. Malathi, and Mrs. Shanker, and all the distinguished people who are attending this session, and congratulations to organizers holding this very important session during the IP week. The question is, why this? I'm the right person. I'm not the right person to speak. At the outset, I would like to tell you that my views are not government views. I'm not speaking on behalf of the government. I've been invited as a private expert. I'm doing this. Of course, I'm a Joint Secretary in Department of Justice, and all bills or ordinances are cleared by the drafting is cleared by the legislative department. That is a separate department, and the subject tribunals comes under the another sister department, that is Department of Legal Affairs, as per the allocation of rules. So my views are my personal views, but I'm going to talk why this, what was necessary to the government to introduce this Tribunals Reforms Rationalization of Conditions of Service Ordinance 2021, which is came into effect from 4th April. The moment 4th April means it's appointed day from which this has become a law, automatically all the cases pending in the 9 tribunals which have been abolished will be transferred to the new regime. For instance, as a copyright person, I talk about, of course, Section 83 is the mother and father of birth of IPAB, which previous speaker have mentioned about the rationale of setting up of IPAB. And IPAB has replaced Copyright Board, and all commercial code matters as per the definition of the commercial code given in the ordinance. Of course, this comes from the bill which was introduced in Lok Sabha on 13th February, which could not be taken up due to rush in the parliament. That's why during the absence of Parliament, there was a need to introduce this tribunal reforms rationalization bill. Commercial Code means as per the section 3 of the Commercial Code Act, that's what Commercial Code is defined there. And commercial bench of the High Court also read into that. It is clearly definition says Commercial Code in this ordinance mentioned wherever which has replaced the IPAB in Copyright Act means it is the commercial bench of the High Court as per the definition of the Commercial Code given in the ordinance. And coming to the a controversy that I know there was no discussion and it has been suddenly done. The idea of rationalization of tribunals, it's not new. The policy was started in Government of India in 2015. The phase 1 of commercial rationalization of tribunals started with introduction of Finance Act 2017. Finance Act 2017, which reduced 26 tribunals to 9. So a government, it was not a sudden decision. From 2015, the idea of rationalization of tribunals was under discussion. Finally, decision was taken after 2 years. In the first phase of rationalization started after a lot of work behind that, and many experts and many departments, government departments giving thought to that. And then 2017 Finance Act gave rise to the first phase of rationalization of tribunals, which reduced 26 tribunals to 19 tribunals. The two kind of policy tools was used. One with the tribunals which were not necessary, those were abolished, or the tribunals which were doing the similar work, like Copyright Board and IPAB, both under the same umbrella of intellectual property rights. That's why Copyright Board was merged with IPAB. So this kind of mergers and abolitions took place in the first phase through Finance Bill 2017. That was the first phase of rationalization of tribunals by Government of India. Then second phase came with the bill introduced in the Parliament on 13th February, that is Tribunals Reforms, Rationalization and Conditions of Service, Ordinance 2020, of course, Bill 21 February, that could not be done, so ordinance has come in that place. So what is this idea? Why this rationalization needed? You all know that the first time the tribunals support of constituting tribunals came from a suggestion. A body was constituted, that was recommendation of this official body called Administrative Reforms Commission 1967, which suggested that, or which recommended that should be set up in suitable areas as a policy tools and as a disruptive tools to reduce, as Sir said, Justice Manmohan said, Singh Sir said, and others have said, to reduce the burden of high courts, where these specialized tribunals will focus on this. But the very rationale, the very intention got defeated. Various reasons Madam Justice Prathiba Singh has mentioned. Number one, before going to that, what was this tribunal supposed to do? And there is no definition of tribunal and in the Constitution. If you look at the Article 136, the word tribunal was clearly defined only in by the Supreme Court. And Durga Shankar Mehta versus Raghuraj Singh case, Supreme Court said the tribunal means it's not a court, but it's an adjudicating body constituted by the state, which is vested with judicial functions as distinguished from administrative and executive functions, and which do not follow uniform procedure of CPC, which do not follow the Indian Evidence Act, which only follows principles of natural justice. And the main objective is to provide cheap and the speedy resolution of justice, delivery of justice, and also to reduce the workload of high courts, and also the judicial review, no appeal, no review, no revision, no reference against tribunal orders. And recently Supreme Court said, I don't remember exactly that case, the direct appeal can be filed in Supreme Court under Article 136. So then what happened? And then, Justice Dr. Manmohan Singh was mentioning about cases being filed in High Court also. He mentioned that only few number. Then what was the need? When appeal was directly lies in the Supreme Court, then why cases were filed in another layer was created in the High Court? Because tribunal failed to execute, exercise the jurisdiction. I just read out 4 important judgments. One is SP Sampath Kumar versus Union of India. Second is Chandrasekhar versus Union of India. Chandrakumar versus Union of India. And recently, Madras Bar Association versus Union of India. And the latest judgment, Roger Matthews case. Roger Matthews versus South Indian Bank Limited. In all these cases, Supreme Court said, what are we doing? We are a constitutional court, an apex court. We are supposed to do into question of law, not just the various things coming to us. And we have become an appellant court. That's what even the Honorable respected Attorney General says. He wrote an article in the Hindu when Vasant Kumar case came. Well, Vasant Kumar case question came, setting up of various regional benches of Supreme Court. So it was opposed. Now the matter is under sub judice, and Supreme Court said a special bench has to be created, 5 judge bench to look into this constitution matter, whether leave Supreme Court as a court to look into only cases pertaining to question of law and constitutional questions, or subject matter and reducing it to an appellant court for the tribunal, removing higher and sidelining the High Court. Why High Court was sidelined? Another problem became with the 42nd Amendment. 42nd Amendment to the Constitution introduced a new sections, Article 323A, 323B, by allowing the legislation to constitute administrative tribunal. Coming to abolition of IPAB, many things have been rightly pointed out by Justice Prathiba Singh, Madam. One is delay in appointment of judges, because sometimes the chairman, they could either people who was nominated by the Supreme Court Collegium or respected judges were not ready to take, or they could not find the right person, because all chairmen are not Justice Prabha Sridevan or Justice Manmohan Singh. So they could not get people at this stage. So legendary IP judges. So they could not get, I know as in officer dealing with copyright board, and then when I moved to dealing in the DPIIT, now then DIPP as dealing with appointment of chairman and members in the IPAB, we used to advertise. We never used to get proper number of applications who are eligible, because twice I remember the applications came, none of them were eligible. We re-advertise. If appointment of members, getting delayed. I know as a student of intellectual property, I did my law and I was doing my LLM when I was in DPIIT, LLM special in intellectual property rights. So I was feeling bad because my friends, advocates, senior legendary advocates asking me, "Arey, kya ho raha hai? Why it is delayed?" one problem which already Justice Prathiba ji mentioned, that with the very location of IPIB in Chennai was problematic. I don't want to raise this during this. It's a very sensitive matter. Reasons why Chennai was chosen, everyone knows. And I don't want to say this publicly here. And to correct that error, benches were created in Delhi and Mumbai and that. Again, providing infrastructure was difficult. Personally, myself rushing to Bikaji Kama and finding out that place and picking up that place, and later getting all the approvals, and then appointing judges was a big problem. Finding a chairman, finding the members. Delay happened for various reasons. You can't blame the judiciary. There were problems. You can read, you can Google and see. The then Chief Justice of India expressing his anguish, not finding the right person. If I find the right person, he is not ready to go to Chennai. And then you have to give all the facilities, and is a big problem. And the same thing happened with the members. And then undue delay happened. The various reasons for that, which Madam has said, Madam Justice Prathiba Singh said, I'm telling out of my experience working in 2 departments and dealing with this, literally getting frustrated. And then question comes, the main thing is, another reason is the sidelining High Court, and again, going back to High Court. And I already said, appeal, even though directly lies in Supreme Court expresses anguish in various judgments. But lawyers were going to High Court and filing because the tribunal orders filed the exercise jurisdiction, acted without jurisdiction, orders mollified or arbitrary, or no principles of natural justice followed, and error on the face of the record or ultra vires order. And then question comes, tribunals, instead of having their own rules, I know as a secretary to the Copyright Board, I know that there was no rules for the Copyright Board. And Madam Prathiba Singh, who was amicus curiae, was dealing with this in High Court. And if I'm correct, Justice Geeta Madam was there. I was physically present as Registrar of Copyright. And then many real things came out there. And then we tried to correct this in 2012 judgment, making it a permanent body. But 2017 first phase of rationalization merged Copyright Board with the IPAB. And then not following the rules, its own rules, and following CPC and other matters were dealing, unnecessary adjournments. I've seen how adjournments were given in the Copyright Board. I don't know about IPAB because I never went and sat in IPAB as a secretary to the board of copyright. I know, just like any other court, advertisements of adjournments were given because the chairman is to say I'm helpless, and then question. So 3 main reasons. These are institutional concern. Tribunals do not enjoy the same constitutional powers of High Court. High Courts were sidelined, and the reason is to empower with the High Courts, abolishing these tribunals, because there is a Commercial Court Act which was introduced by Government of India in 2015. Now, Madam herself vouched that in the Commercial Court functioning very well. I don't know what new things are going to happen. I'm just going to tell how the new regime may help the IP community to have speedy justice and cost-effective justice, because the very legislative intention of introducing Commercial Court Act to have a speedy justice to deal with the commercial disputes. The definition gives 22 varieties of commercial disputes. Is very exhaustive, and ease of doing business point of view, especially the improving the enforcing contract to improve the businesses not only in India and also attract investment. That is the main reason the Commercial Court Act was introduced. And since commercial benches in most of the courts are functioning, especially Delhi High Court, salute to all the chief justices and judges who are efficiently dealing with these commercial benches, because we in Department of Justice, we keep getting a lot of information because we do a lot of monitoring on how this commercial bench in the Delhi and Mumbai, which comes under the ease of doing business purview of the World Bank methodology, and also the district courts, district dedicated commercial courts, which have been set up in Delhi and Mumbai. And unnecessarily, the Supreme Court pendency started increasing. It went beyond 60,000 because unnecessary appeals started getting filed there. The burden of Supreme Court has to be decreased, and the importance of High Court has to be recognized with the new regime of commercial benches, which have been set up following the new law introduced, that is commercial court law. And also, while filing appeals directly from tribunals to Supreme Court, though, the opportunity of training and grooming High Court judges, not all are IP judges like Justice Prathiba Singh and Justice Hon'ble Ms. There are judges. I know, being a resource person in the National Judicial Academy, the honor of sitting next to Manmohan Singh Sahab and then giving talks, I've seen brilliant judges there, young and brilliant judges. They have full potential to become a expert IP and expert commercial judges, and but they should be given exposure. So another idea is to give them exposure so that when the matter goes directly, but how to train them, not simply sending to Delhi Judicial Academy or National Judicial Academy. The great suggestion, I full respect to Justice Prathiba Singh. I support her idea of creating IP divisions in each court, and as suggested by again Justice Manmohan Singh, the technical members are either they can be taken there to work in that bench to assist various high courts. There are going to be 25 high courts which are going to be bustling with these IP related matters. And another reason is, of course, they can have understanding with these IP officers. This can be a training and grooming ground for the IP examiners, patent examiners, or copyright, trademark, others. And another important thing is access. Access to IPAB was limited. Either you have to go to Chennai or these benches whenever they function on a rotation or regular. I don't know how it is going to happen. So now access is more. There are 25 high court benches out there. There, any nook and corner of the country they can, from Siliguri, one can, for an IP matter, need not rush to Mumbai. They can go to Guwahati High Court, for instance, I'm telling. So, and another important reason is specialized benches in High Court is a good proposition. I fully support, because recently a lot of changes have taken place under the enforcing contract, ease of doing business. When full salute to the chairman of the E-Committee of the Supreme Court, the then chairman and present chairman, the young and dynamic Justice Chandrachud Sahab. And the e-courts reforms is going to transform. During the pandemic, the video conference happening and virtual courts are happening because the ICT infrastructure which has been set up there. And then I give you recently few more reforms happened to set up a specialized high value bench in high courts for ₹500 crores and above commercial dispute, which includes IP disputes. This work has already been done. In Delhi was a great disruptive decision they have taken. Commercial bench, original side, single bench, and then appeal goes to appellate division, where Chief Justice Sir himself will take care of that. What they have done, Delhi High Court, this is a salute to the idea, where other high court said, as and when these matters, at present we don't have ₹500 crore and 100 crore matters, as and when can we'll establish those. Delhi High Court said, no, these are the benches and appellate benches of commercial in the Delhi High Court, they're permanently there. The moment case is filed, it will go there. But other high courts, it will come later, as and when these are filed. So Delhi has done, but of course, Orissa has set up, Andhra Pradesh has set up, Allahabad has set up, Jammu and Kashmir has set up, and Sikkim High Court, Patna High Court, Madras High Courts. These are the high courts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 high courts out of 25 set up special commercial benches 500 crore above. Mumbai has done, they have set up a special commercial bench 100 crore and above. And, recently in 2018, the Specific Relief Act was amended in 2018, special benches for infrastructure projects set up. And when these special courts were set up, we requested all the high courts, why, even though the Amendment Act mentions about the designated court, please make these designated courts to function at least one day in a week as a dedicated court. So Karnataka has done that. Karnataka High Court, Madhya Pradesh High Court, Allahabad, and Calcutta has done. So with just one point I'm going to tell you, with the now new paperless commercial courts are coming, and Supreme Court e-filing 3.0 has been done. Now, somebody was asking how about summons technology we are using. Recently, we entered into an agreement with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Their database API has been taken. This has been tested in the Bombay High Court and commercial district dedicated commercial courts there. So and successfully tested. Now automatically now the e-courts software, CIS software, will deliver summons through email with SMS alert now, with the database, which a company database given by company affairs. Maybe with many are down with COVID, and unfortunately in Delhi High Court and Tisajari courts, we are waiting for that test to happen. If that happens, there's going to be a disruption here as well. So many things are happening. Commercial court will help. Pre-institution mediation going to reduce the time taken. And under the ease of doing business, time has already been reduced in Mumbai and Delhi, and it's less than a year. And strict timelines are there in commercial court. And summary procedure can happen as per the amended CPC. And case management hearing or pre-trial conference is must. And this has been become part of the e-court software. So many disruptive things are happening in the commercial court functioning. And I tell you, we have set up a committee which is going to come out soon, commercial court rules, which has not been done yet. And the rules going to be a standard rules, which going to be introduced disruption. All commercial benches and commercial courts going to, at least some way, going to function similar manner to reduce the time taken. And once I understand that cases considered transferred with the appointed date, that is 4th April. So, and again, I want to say all these my views expressed by me here in this forum are my personal views, are not views of government. Hopefully, wish you all the best, and all of you stay safe and take care, and may God bless all of you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raghavendraji, for speaking very frankly. I would say that the questions still remain unanswered, which is that if the government itself failed to make appointments because of which IPAB was not able to function, where was the wisdom in abolishing the institution rather than making amends to ensure that it functions efficiently as it had already started doing now? That's the first question. I still haven't got an answer. The second is, why the alacrity? Why such urgency? Why to abolish it without putting an alternative in place, which should have been as efficient as IPAB? Nobody would have grudged if you had a mechanism in place which would have been as effective as IPAB, and to say, okay, now we don't need IPAB, we are giving you something as good as that or better than that. Why now in this manner? That remains. And third, We still don't know when the matters are going to be addressed. And let me tell you one thing, commercial court rules are there, fine, but let me tell you that commercial suits are still pending for a long time. They are still not getting disposed of very quickly. So it's all very good to have the rules and everything, but the judges are overburdened. There's so much of cases. They are not able to achieve the objective of the quick disposal. If the judges are working very hard, but then look at the number of cases which are getting filed, and you don't have the vacancies which are getting filled. So when you don't have the vacancy getting filled, what would you do? You will abolish High Court. This is not the solution, that you abolish an institution because you're not able to man it. The objective is to create enough infrastructure, create enough. The concept was great. Concept worked. And then, you abolish it for something without a solution. And our grievance is we today don't have a solution. And we are back to the problem that it was 20 years back. Anyway, I thank you very much for your views. As you said, they are personal views. We still need to understand what is the government view and do we have any solutions, and if so, when. Thank you very much. Mr. Anand Krishnan, you now will be speaking for the industry. We are terribly out of time, but you are a very, very important speaker. Please share your views, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Prathiba Singh ji, Justice Manmohan Singh ji, Hemang Singh ji, Mr. Raghavendra, and other distinguished members who are participating in this webinar, from all over the world, I understand. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me at the outset take this opportunity to thank the organizers, AIPPI, Lex Witness, APAA, FICPI, INTA, for inviting me to participate in the World IP Week virtual event on the topic of the abolition of IPAB, rational and followed. I have to definitely have a disclaimer here. I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal person. What I am going to be sharing here is mostly the industry perspective. And what I plan to do, sir, is that first I would like to set the context from industry perspective before I share some thoughts on the abolition of IPAB, because on that subject, I think a lot has been said very eloquently by Justice Prathiba Singh ji and Manmohan Singh ji. And I will also share my thoughts, but I would like to first set the context. We represent the research-based biopharmaceutical industry, which plays a vital role in developing new medicines and vaccines to prevent and treat diseases, improving the lives of patients worldwide. By investing billions of dollars and thousands of scientist hours, the industry pushes the limits of science, fosters medical progress, and contributes to the prosperity of the society. Nothing could have been demonstrated better than during COVID, when within the shortest possible time, with extraordinary collaboration, there are vaccines today to manage it, there are drugs to treat it, and many more to come. And this is happening because of the research and development efforts that are being done all over the world. But I think all of you also, I'm sure, are aware, on average, researchers identify one promising compound among 5,000 to 10,000 screened. And researchers then extensively test the compound to ensure its efficacy, safety, a process that can take anywhere between 10 to 15 years for both a medicine and a vaccine. And this is important, and I will link it up to it when I come to the IPAB matter. Roughly around 70 new medicines are launched, while around 8,000 compounds are in different stages of development globally. Of all the industrial sector, the biopharmaceutical industry has consistently invested the most in R&D. Even in times of economic crisis or turmoil, the research-based pharmaceutical industry is estimated to spend anywhere around $180 billion annually on biopharmaceutical R&D, and it's only going up. A robust healthcare system is an important pillar of every country's socio-economic development. And to ensure that we foster that, there must be sound enabling policy environment for the biopharmaceutical industry, and that's one of the very fundamental conditions that is required for its good performance. So in healthcare, innovation actually brings better quality of life. And I like the way Justice Prathiba Singh so nicely said that this is the time to have not only good innovation, but a lot of humanity. And that's what we are seeing happening right now as we speak. These innovations improve the patient's outcome and also contribute to the social and economic well-being of the nation. Very important point to note, because we always keep talking about ease of doing business, but how some of these decisions actually distort the ease of doing business, I will share a little later. Without any doubt, I think everyone realizes that innovation is the bedrock on which this industry is built. And today, all of us know that diseases such as hepatitis C, HIV, which were almost considered as death sentence at one point of time, is no longer life-threatening. Why is it happening? It's because of R&D. And in the future, interventions such as genetics, cellular programming, nanotechnology, bionics will emerge as themes for driving a value-based healthcare chain and build a scientific temper that rewards, recognizes, and respects innovation. That is very important. Because if you look at the most advanced countries today, the fundamental reason of that economic development is innovation and an enabling ecosystem. Its key contribution to global health, that is the pharma industry actually, is turning fundamental research into innovative treatments. And industry success rests on continuous innovation, both for prevention as well as treatment of common, complex, as well as neglected diseases, and also improving existing treatments, including vaccines. And despite often challenging business conditions and one of the highest and stringent regulatory environments amongst all the sectors, including defense, or electronics, or IT, the innovative biopharmaceutical industry undertakes investments that are amongst the riskiest in the highest technology sector. By investing this, billions of dollars and thousands of scientists' hours that I talked about earlier, we push the limit of science, foster medical progress, and contribute to the prosperity of the society. And today it is estimated that roughly on an average for every molecule or product that comes out, around $2.6 billion is spent in terms of R&D, because many of them fail. Only 1 out of 5 or 10,000 really success. All countries, including India, has the potential to attract investment and foster innovation. I think that is where a robust innovation ecosystem is required to be fostered through many enabling conditions, such as access to world-class talent, political and financial stability, appropriate regulatory frameworks that protect and reward innovation, and very importantly, a sound intellectual property protection system. The legal certainty provided by IP is particularly relevant given the long innovation cycle of the biopharmaceutical industry. Approximately it takes about 13.7 years to launch a product after patent filing in the United States. You can just imagine what's the type of effort that's going on. And if we do not have a proper ecosystem, one can just imagine what will be the level of interest for any of the innovative biopharmaceutical companies to really invest in India. The future is all about innovation. And, it is so nice. In fact, we are really honored that from the highest, levels in the country, we talk about Startup India, Innovate India, manufacture in India, etc. These are wonderful things, but it is equally important when we make those type of statements that we are setting up for success and not for failure. Because I'm picking up from actually Justice Prathiba Singh said, that IPAB somehow it looks unfortunately, right from beginning, whether it was set up for failure. And in fact, normally in business terms, because I'm a commercial person, I'm from business. And what we say is that whenever we build an organization, build a brand, we said it's very important that we set up for success. Okay, including individuals, we need to set up for success. Since the future is all about innovation in the biopharmaceutical industry, innovation promotes new diagnostic tools, treatments, cures, addresses the unmet medical needs. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to R&D and ensure that we are creating that type of an ecosystem, and which is what India must do. We have the talent, we have the capacity, we have the capability, but we still have a long way to go in really establishing that ecosystem. So let me now come to the topic of discussion. The reason I wanted to contextualize it is because this industry is a little bit unique because of the extraordinary resource that's put on R&D. And India must work towards providing an enabling ecosystem to foster innovation. The industry was really thrilled, when the National Intellectual Property Rights policy came in, wherein it said that it recognizes benefits that a strong IP regime could bring to India through economic growth, employment, and a vibrant research and development environment. These were, wonderful, statements that were made. And we only hope that as we go forward, we foster that particular policy statement. What we are looking for effective enforcement of IP rights through a transparent and predictable legal and regulatory regime, that is essential in almost any innovative economy. That's what we are looking for. And when I speak to my colleagues from across the globe, the worry that one has is that with the abolishing of IPAB, will it potentially erode the certainty and the predictability which was brought about by a functional IPAB in adjudication of complex technical and scientific cases, particularly in the last couple of years? As Justice Manmohan Singh said that, yes, we were complaining earlier that there is a problem and it was not functioning. But the last couple of years, this system was working well, and everybody is surprised as to why this decision was taken. Protection, which are granted under the Patents Act 1970, as every one of you are much more than me, they have a very specified period of time. And if the dispute process consumes a whole lot of time, the whole value of innovation is lost. Because at the end of the day, there is a commercial value to the innovation. So if the judicial review, there is a process that is there which exists in India, but our worry is abolition of a dedicated body which was created specifically in the absence of dedicated specialized patent benches in the High Court, whether it will result, number one, in delays and also in inconsistent and inaccurate interpretation, because these are of highly technical nature, and that is where the worry is. Only time will tell us as to how we are going to move about. I would like to just cite one example here because I was part of this at that particular point in time when the Honorable Supreme Court, has said time and again, has recognized that commercial cases require immediate attention and must be disposed of for national interest. And this goes way back in 2015 in the Glenmark versus MSD case, and in fact directed the Registrar General of Delhi High Court to inform the court, Supreme Court, the result of its effort that must have been undertaken for speedy disposal of pending IPR suits in the country. We are worried whether with this abolition, we will be able to fast track and accelerate. We hope that the government in its, wisdom, what actions that they have taken will hopefully resolve the issue of pendency that is there and help at least accelerate the IP case matters to be resolved at the earliest. From the OPPI member companies, which I represent, I must share what is the experience. It can be stated that while most of the commercial divisions, high courts that are there, they dispose of interim application in an expeditious manner, and thanks to that, the final decision takes years due to huge pendency of cases. With IP being granted for a very specific period of time, right from the date of priority, absence of a final outcome, if it takes time, it is just loss of commercial value. And that is what one is worried about all over the world. And as I said earlier, I am not I'm not a legal person, but I did try to check, and it was also, I think, elaborated by Justice Prathiba Singh ji very nicely. I wanted to check with my global folks saying that, hey, listen, what is the situation in other parts of the world? Are there such type of tribunals? And lo and behold, what I found was that almost in all the advanced countries, whether it is Germany, UK, Japan, Switzerland, and I also understand recently, even in China, there are established regional IP courts that resolve this issue in a very, very expeditious manner. And OPPI wishes to state that after a much delayed appointment of a chairman and technical members, a functional IPAB that was very well getting streamlined and was delivering a good judgment of high quality, dissolution of that has taken everyone by surprise, whether it is the companies that I am representing from US or Europe or Japan. Everyone is wondering as to what will be the situation in India. Because what are we looking for? We are looking for certainty. We are looking for predictability of IP ecosystems and its institution, because they are critical factors for enabling ease of doing business. Our appeal, as OPPI, and we urge the government, I don't know how feasible it is, but if there is a possibility to reconsider and exclude IPAB from the list of tribunals that have been abolished by the ordinance, since IPAB, abolition, in our opinion, will only weaken the certainty and predictability of the Indian IP ecosystem. That's the worry that we have. I would also like to mention that in today's highly competitive global economy, extremely competitive, every single country is trying to attract investment, laying the red carpet. We are also doing it. Okay, that's the reason why we keep talking about our improvement in rank so far as Global Innovation Index is concerned. Because industry looks at IP as key to manufacturers' success. And our worry is that abolition of IPAB has concerns for many, and as hopefully it must not diminish the enthusiasm that is there, for investing in India. And why is this worry? The worry is because, without establishing an alternative, effective and efficient mechanism, we have gone ahead and abolished the IPAB. And that is the reason why this concern is coming up. As I mentioned earlier, we want to encourage investment in India. We want more global pharmaceutical companies to come and establish R&D units in India, and for which we need to establish an enabling environment. considering ourselves 48th or 52nd in a global innovation index, while we have made, tremendous progress for which we must be thankful to the government, our aim must be much, much higher. We must be amongst the top 10 or 15, not 52nd. That's the way that we need to look forward to. And we have great initiatives like the Startup India, Make in India, Digital India, Innovative India. But if we have to do all these things, I think it is important that we nurture innovation. And for India to further emerge as a global R&D hub that I am talking about, I would once again emphasize that we need a proper IP ecosystem and environment. I will close with this last thought of mine. We keep on talking about stability and predictability because for business to come and get attracted, this is extremely important. Investment will come into the country only if there is stability and predictability and consistency in the policy environment. If we keep on changing it, it's going to be very difficult because the global players will be only looking at how am I going to manage, my business in India. And that is the reason why this is an appeal. Unfortunately, IPAB, which was not enabled to function optimally, and once it started functioning optimally in the last couple of years with decent staffing, with technical members coming in, and now a decision has been taken to unfortunately abolish. We hope and pray that government takes the help of legal luminaries, and thought leaders, and many of them are there in this forum, like Justice Prathiba Singh ji, Justice Manmohan Singh ji, Hemang Singh ji, and many others, and really work on seeing and developing a system that is going to really showcase India as the innovation hub, because it has all the, things that are required, whether for enabling to do business. And in the pharmaceutical industry, more importantly, the intellectual property environment. I must also tell you, Prathiba Singh ji talked about humanity. You must all be aware, when the COVID pandemic struck, the global pharmaceutical companies, in collaboration with academia, with research institutions from all over the globe, crashed the timeline of getting a vaccine into the country. Normal delivery of a vaccine takes 8 to 10 to 15 years. Here, globally, vaccines were delivered in about 12 to 14 months time frame. That's the power of innovation. A treatment came in the form of remdesivir, and incidentally, those vaccines are getting licensed out to India, like the AstraZeneca vaccine or the Johnson & Johnson vaccines, which we are going to see and have it in India. They are all being licensed. Remdesivir, a treatment that's much in the news, a Gilead product, which has come out of this research that I talked about. They gave license to 7 global, Indian players here, manufacture, make it available to the patients over here. When capacity was running into an issue, additional manufacturing plants were, approved so that you can further increase the capacity. And still one step ahead, they have gone ahead and donated 500,000 doses, close to 500,000 doses of remdesivir to India, because humanity comes in over there, because this industry helps save lives, and that's what we are for. And if this industry does not do research, does not develop vaccines and medicines, we have a challenge there. And how will that happen? It can happen only if we have a proper ecosystem. And sir, many of you know that much better than me. And my appeal is, please ensure that we have such an environment. India has to move forward. India must be on the top in R&D, and that's what we are looking forward to. And one of the enabler will be the proper IP ecosystem. Thank you very much. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anand Krishnan. It was such a pleasure listening to you that I wish you could have gone on and on and on. You were speaking the heart of IP community of India. This is what we dream of. This is what we aspire for. We want to see India right on the top as far as the IP is concerned. But unfortunately, I think this decision perhaps has given a wrong message. And this is a matter of concern. And therefore, I believe sincerely that the government really needs to introspect that this message which has gone, it needs to be corrected. It can be corrected. There are no ego issues here. If we are looking at the larger picture, if we are talking about creating an alternative, let's first create an alternative and abolish IPAB. So you give a right message. You have summarized the three factors so well: certainty, predictability, and the speed. So beautifully summarized. That's what every IP right holder is looking for. I feel all three are compromised here with this decision. I hope this is not the last that we are talking on the subject. I hope this is just the beginning of the discussion. And I sincerely hope that this discussion started today on such a historic day would translate into something better that will come out of it and come out quickly. I hope so. With that, I would like to really thank all of you for taking your time out and sharing your views, which were absolutely fabulous. I hope the members, participants found them useful and have takeaways from that. With that, we close this session and hand it over to Gauri to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Hello, I'm Gauri Kumar. First and foremost, many thanks to our audience today. Many of you are possibly dealing with personal challenges and losses due to the COVID crisis ravaging India. We are very grateful that you attended this session. Heartfelt thanks to all of our eminent panelists, including Honorable Justice Manmohan Singh, sir, keynote speaker, Honorable Justice Prathiba Singh, ma'am, for participating in this unique collaborative celebration of the World IP Week. Not only have their insights made a lasting impression on us, it's always a pleasure to hear them, but they will also help all of us see all sides of all the issues discussed. Finally, I would personally like to express my deepest gratitude as the INTA India representative to the incredible team that put together this event. Representatives from AIPPI-India Group, APAA-Indian Group, FICPI-India, INTA, and the official secretariat Lex Witness, working together towards a common bigger goal. The past month or so, I've had the good fortune of interacting with some of the best minds in IP law and in the industry, pouring in their personal time and effort in planning this event, and not just for the sake of putting up yet another webinar, but to really get the pulse of the themes we discussed today and to have an honest and open conversation on solutions. Ultimately, we are taking away a lot more from today's discussions: the advanced maturity and solidarity of the IP fraternity in India, and the universal truth that together we may be able to do so much more. So hopefully this webinar is the beginning of more conversations on finding solutions for the greater good of our country's IP landscape and our country's innovation landscape as well. To repeat the poignant words of Justice Prathiba Singh, this is the time for IP to connect with humanity. I will conclude with a hope and a prayer from all of us that may India heal soon from this raging pandemic. Be safe, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri. Malathi ma'am, seeking your permission